Before we begin, let's slow everything down. You're not here to learn dates, or memorize rules, or keep track of every name. This channel exists for quiet watching, for long stories told gently, from a distance where nothing is urgent. We walk through strange worlds and broken timelines, the way Prismo watches them from the center of time, calmly, patiently, letting moments unfold without rushing them. If you're still awake, and you want more journeys like this waiting for you later, you can quietly subscribe or leave a like, a small signal to keep these timelines playing. And if you're already drifting, that's perfect. Let's begin. The channel has gone quiet, but the universe has not. You drop into it mid-flicker, mid-hum, like you nodded off between commercials and woke up behind the screen instead. This is not your bedroom. This is a lounge pressed against the edge of reality, half Prismo's time room, half forgotten late-night cartoon block, floating somewhere just left of the center of time. Old CRT televisions line the walls in crooked constellations. Their glass faces breathe static. Dim neon tubing traces the ceiling, buzzing in colors that never made it into any human color space, casting everything in that drowsy 2 a.m. glow where time feels like it's buffering. On one screen, a background kid from a beach city crowd shot laughs in a loop. On another, a Gravity Falls tourist you saw once and never again sips coffee forever. Think about that for a second. They never got to leave the frame. Here is the thing. The cosmic forces that run this place are not thunder and lightning. They are not angry. They are tired librarians on the night shift. Time is here, shuffling VHS tapes with labels written in cramped handwriting. Hot Dog Vendor, Episode 12. Crystal Gem Extra, Crowd Pan. Random Park Guy third from left. Memory leans over a cluttered desk, dusting off character sheets, erasing coffee rings from margins where someone once scribbled. Secretly exiled Prince. Fate sits cross-legged on the carpet, biro in hand, adding notes no one will ever read. There is a soft rustle as animation cells slide against each other, a paper ocean of almost heroes. The only real light comes from the screens and a single neon sign that just says, runs in a language you understand anyway. On the low table between sagging couches, there's one remote control. Just one. It is small, unremarkable, and it has the power to rewind to any background character's moment, in any timeline, across any multiverse that ever aired for half a second. Most nights, no one touches it. The main heroes are tucked into their main story beds, perfectly framed in their perfect closing shots. Finn is asleep. Steven is asleep. Mordecai and Rigby have passed out on the couch in universe, credits rolling over their faces. But in the dark corners of those universes, their side characters are still awake. The mailman who saw the portal open. The gem who flinched when no one else noticed. The park employee whose name never made it into the subtitles. They are still carrying unresolved lore like unmailed letters. We're going to sit with them for a while. In this video, we're going to treat every forgotten face like a headline, every throwaway line like a wish that never reached Prismo's desk. Because here, in this cinematic night world, the side characters are not background, they are backlog. So let's start. Sink back into your pillow. Feel the hum of the CRTs under your ribs, the neon pressing gently against your eyelids. Somewhere, a cosmic archivist presses play on the first forgotten life, and we begin a long, slow descent through hidden stories that stretch across every channel of the multiverse, for as long as it takes you to fall asleep. What we're really doing tonight, the secret lives of forgotten side characters. Tonight, we're not chasing heroes. We're doing something quieter, and honestly, a lot weirder. We're going to slip sideways into the lives of the characters the camera barely cared about, the ones who existed at the edge of the frame, while destiny happened somewhere else. Here is the thing, those edges are where the universes leak through. In this video, we're going to drift through Adventure Time, Steven Universe, Gravity Falls, regular show, and a few neighboring timelines. And we're going to follow the people who usually just walk past the plot, cosmic clerks at the center of time, background townsfolk with one line, one-off guardians who show up, save everything and then vanish back into the credits, throwaway gags that secretly carry the emotional weight of an entire timeline. Think about that for a second. On the surface, this sounds like trivia. It is not. Trivia is a list of facts. This is more like opening a drawer of abandoned side quests and realizing they were never abandoned, just happening off-screen. Many of these shows literally have series bibles with full backstories for characters who appear for less than a minute. A nervous cashier in Beach City, a random wizard in Wizard City, a duck in the Gravity Falls crowd shot who keeps reappearing like he's on his own paranoid mystery arc. They are not accidents. They are quiet anchors that keep the reality from floating away. We're going to treat them that way. We'll look at the cosmic bureaucrats who enforce the rules of time and desire, the ones who embody the paperwork of existence while the protagonists yell about destiny. We'll follow the janitors of the multiverse, the mail carriers, the snack bar employees at the edge of apocalypses. While the main cast is busy making speeches about power and fate, these characters are filing the forms that actually let the wish go through. But under the law, this is really about emotion, about loneliness and being overlooked, about heartbreak that never got its own episode, just a 2-second reaction shot in the background of someone else's big moment. There is sadness there, resignation, the strange comfort of realizing that even the extra who flinched when the monster roared has a history, a favorite song, a fear of waking up tomorrow in the same small life. So who is telling you all this? Imagine a Prismo-like narrator stretched out on a cosmic couch, glowing softly half awake in a time room that touches every channel. Not exactly Prismo, but adjacent in that specifically Adventure Time way. A wish granter who remembers every cameo, every cutaway gag, every background face that flickered by once and then kept living in some branch of the timeline. He can't change their fates, but he can tell their stories, slow and gentle, until your breathing matches the rhythm of his voice. And this journey is not here to keep you up. It's here to let you go. We'll move calmly, looping through big questions about memory, meaning, and who gets to be important in a universe that pretends to be about heroes. The pace will be soft, the edges rounded. If you fall asleep halfway through a side character's tragic arc, that's not a failure. That is the wish being granted. Somewhere, the cosmic archivist will keep talking anyway, filing away every forgotten life, until the next section pulls us into the first of their hidden histories. The roadmap through the background, how tonight's lore will gently unfold. So, let's start by laying out the map, so your mind doesn't have to keep checking the horizon for what's coming next. You can relax into it. Imagine a quiet corridor at the center of time, doors on either side, each one labeled with a name you probably never learned. And tonight we're going to walk past them, one by one, slowly enough that your brain can drift without feeling lost. First, we'll step into the Prismo-style cosmic office. Not his time room exactly, but that same genre of reality, the fluorescent, slightly depressing, slightly hilarious bureaucracy that keeps the multiverse from falling apart. Here is the thing. The universe does not run on hero speeches. It runs on clerks of causality, wish-granting civil servants, and cosmic administrators buried under forms no one reads. We'll set the context, remember their 2 or 3 throwaway scenes, then gently unpack the hidden rules they embody, the way their desks and screens and coffee mugs tell you more about power than any glowing sword ever could. From there, we drift down to the ground level, the recurring background civilians, the Beach City regulars in Steven Universe, the nameless tourists and shopkeepers of Gravity Falls, the people who flinch in the distance when reality bends. We're going to recall how they react when gods and monsters walk past their front doors, and then we'll connect those reactions to something larger, to the idea that every timeline is made of witnesses, not just protagonists. Think about that for a second. The camera pans across a crowd, and somewhere in that blur is a life with its own main theme. After that, we'll file some multiversal paperwork in the regular show corner of existence. The cosmic auditors, the temporal managers, the beings whose whole job is to stamp one form and keep a wish from tearing a hole in the sky, will move quickly through their lore, but slow down around the philosophical edges. What does it mean to be responsible for reality, but never credited in the opening titles? There is humor there, dry and a little absurd, but also that quiet exhaustion of someone who has seen too many timelines misfiled. Then we turn to the hidden guardians and clerks, the ones who watch portals, catalog monsters, or ring up cursed artifacts like they're just groceries. We'll set the scene, trace their brief appearances, and show how creators hide entire cosmologies in a single reaction shot or a bored line of dialogue. Not evil, not even indifferent, just bound to their post. Finally, we'll sink into the emotional one-off characters, forgotten monsters with tragic hearts, background kids who mirror the main cast's desires, strangers who get one wish and vanish. Here the pace will stretch. We'll linger on their faces, on the way their tiny arcs echo loneliness, regret, or quiet bravery. By the end, these side characters will feel like old friends sitting at the edge of your bed, keeping watch as you fall asleep, woven into one soft, continuous universe of background lives. And in the next section, we'll open the first door and actually step through. Get cozy in the time room, a sleepy invitation and soft CTA. So, we step through that first door and pause. Because before we walk all the way into the lives of these background ghosts and cosmic interns, you should actually be as comfortable as they are pretending to be. Let's start with you, not them. If you can, shift a little. Adjust the pillow under your head, or wedge a second one behind your back like you're claiming your own tiny throne at the center of time. Dim the lights if you haven't already. Let the room fall into that soft, late-episode glow where reality gets quieter around the edges. Maybe you lower the brightness on your screen, or flip your phone face down so only the audio of this universe reaches you. If you want to go full Prismo, you can even queue up a sleepy lore playlist to autoplay through the night. So while you drift, we're going to keep wandering the multiverse on your behalf. Here is the thing. Engagement on YouTube is usually framed like a demand. Smash this, ring that, declare your allegiance to the algorithm gods. In this video, it's different. If the idea of deep diving into side character lore genuinely relaxes you, if hearing about the janitor who quietly saves a timeline, or the barista who once served coffee to a cosmic wish granter makes your breathing slow down, then just gently tap like. Soft pressure. One tiny wish pressed into the fabric of the platform. And if you want more of this, more bedtime multiverse stories, more quiet tours through the backgrounds of Adventure Time, Steven Universe, Gravity Falls, regular show, all stitched into one long, drowsy continuity, subscribing becomes less of a transaction and more of a ritual, a way of telling the universe and the recommendation engine, yes, I would like more obscure emotional side quests narrated to me while I fall asleep, please. Think about that for a second. In a reality where you can watch anything at any time, you're choosing to listen to the lore of people the camera barely noticed. Now, the comments. This is where you get to write in the margins of the multiverse. If there's a single side character you remember, a background gem in Steven Universe who only spoke once, a Gravity Falls tourist who kept reappearing, a regular show co-worker who looked permanently 5 minutes from quitting reality, leave their name, or your best description, in the comments. Ask yourself, who is the most obscure character your brain refused to delete? Those comments are not just feedback, they're future lore fuel. In our metaphor, every like is another tiny character file sliding into Prismo's cosmic cabinet. Every comment, is a new folder labeled with a half-remembered face waiting to be opened in a later episode. Not currency, not clout, just population growth for a universe of forgotten lives. And with that, we zoom back out to the time room. Prismo-like, we're on the couch again, remote in hand, infinite screens humming softly. On one screen, Adventure Time's background residence. On another, Steven's unnamed beach city neighbors. The first category of characters is waiting, frozen mid-frame, like they've been holding their breath for years. Let's press play. Between spotlight and silence, reframing side characters as the true cosmic constant. They move again, all at once. The camera pretends to follow the heroes, but the universe quietly cheats. Your eye is pulled to Finn, or Steven, or Dipper, while a whole parallel existence is happening 2 centimeters to the left of the frame. Here is the thing. The story only works because those lives are still moving when you're not looking. Between spotlight and silence, that's where side characters live. Between the big prophecy and the guy sweeping up after the prophecy fight. Between the main arc and the background gag, a loud destiny and the quiet routine that makes the loud destiny believable. The hero saves the world. Somebody has to reopen the sandwich shop in the morning. Think about that for a second. In Adventure Time, the cosmic versus the mundane is the central tension. We talk about the center of time, the multiverse, wishes that can rewrite reality, but the show always cuts back to tree trunks baking pies, or Choose Goose selling cursed deals. Those characters live between episodes, between frames, between the writer's jokes and their secret heartbreaks about what it means to go on living after the universe almost ends again. They are not the wish. They are the consequence. Steven Universe does the same thing, just tuned to trauma versus healing. The crystal gems fight ancient wars, but Beach City's side characters hold the emotional gravity. Lars, Sadie, the Frymans, Kofi at Fish Stew Pizza. They exist between gem battles, between Steven's big musical revelations, between the rules of gem society and the tiny human desires for a day off, a better job, a quiet apology. The main cast processes cosmic trauma. The side cast shows you what healing actually looks like in a world that keeps pretending everything is normal. Gravity Falls pushes mystery versus normalcy. Dipper and Mabel chase the supernatural, but it's the background townsfolk who anchor reality. Lazy Susan, Toby determined, the teens loitering outside the convenience store. They live between Weird Mageddon jump cuts, between paranormal events and PTA meetings. They are the universe asking very politely, okay, but who cleans this up? And in all of that, side characters are quietly very Prismo, infinite narrative potential, almost no screen time. They sit at the edge of the frame, like a time room couch at the edge of existence. They are powerful in what they imply, whole timelines you never see, but vulnerable to being erased the second the credits roll. They are not evil. They are not even indifferent. They are just bound by a different kind of rule. The rule of narrative focus. If the main cast is the dream, side characters are the subconscious. They hold the unresolved feelings the story can't look at directly yet. The fears that leak out as a one-off joke. The desires that only show up as a background poster or a throwaway line about a failed band, or a reaction shot that lingers half a second too long. We're going to treat them as the true constant, the quiet pressure that keeps each universe from floating apart. In that specifically Adventure Time way, the joke is that they're minor. The reality is that they're the load-bearing walls. And next, we're going to press pause on the big names entirely and walk, slowly, through the lives happening just off camera, the hidden time rooms. How shows quietly build worlds around background faces. So let's start with a quiet horror. Somewhere, in a binder you will never see, there is a full childhood, a divorce, and a favorite sandwich written out for the guy who walks across frame once to sell hot dogs. He has a birthday. He has a worst day of his life. On screen, he exists for 6 seconds. On the page, he's a parallel timeline that never quite collapses into reality. Here is the thing. Most of these shows live on invisible paperwork. Series Bibles for Adventure Time. Steven Universe, Gravity Falls. Regular show, they're full of side characters with jobs, anxieties, relationships, and very specific fashion choices, all meticulously logged so that when they drift through the center of time for half a shot, they still feel like they belong to a universe that would keep going without you watching. You get a background gem at the edge of a crowd, but the writers know what she did during the war. Those civilians are test pilots. Before you risk a main character's soul on a new tone, you try it on a face no one has memorized. A random beachgoer gets a quiet reaction shot to a cosmic disaster, and the animators push the grief just a little too far, just to see if the reality holds. A throwaway regular show employee gets a weirdly heavy line about wasted time, and suddenly you know the writers are rehearsing a future midlife crisis arc. It's like the multiverse is running simulations in the background. Watch the visual language. That recurring guy in Gravity Falls with the arm cast that changes to a neck brace, then a full-body wrap, that's not a gag floating in a void. It's an unseen disaster arc told entirely through injuries. The same couple in Steven Universe, aging gently at the back of boardwalk scenes, tracks the passage of time more honestly than any calendar. A prop that migrates from shelf to shelf, a shirt that stays stained for 3 episodes. These are tiny, stubborn records of cause and effect in a world that pretends to reset. So side characters are not filler. They are not disposable NPCs spawned by an algorithm. They are pressure gauges. They show you how far the wish, the battle, the heartbreak actually traveled. When a city gets attacked and the next episode's bus stop crowd looks different, fewer people, more bandages, one empty bench, that is the universe quietly admitting the cost. Imagine, above all of this, a cosmic production office, a Prismo-adjacent time room, but instead of wishes, the walls are covered in character sheets and color keys, every background face pinned up, annotated with rules, limits, desire. We're going to walk through that office in our heads, a bulletin board labeled Beach City Civilians, another titled Ooo, Candy Kingdom Extras, each card waiting for the moment it will flicker into existence for half a second, and then vanish again. Think about that for a second. An entire bureaucracy devoted to making sure the person buying fries in the background feels real. And as you drift, we'll leave this office behind and follow one of those pinned-up lives as it finally steps off the wall and onto the screen. The Old Man Dreaming the Extras, a philosophical twist on background existence. And as that pinned-up life steps off the corkboard and into motion, the camera doesn't follow it. Not really. It just brushes past like a stranger's shoulder in a crowded train station. But somewhere else, at another desk, an old man's eyelids twitch and the universe of extras shifts in his sleep. Let's start with him. Not Prismo's old man at the center of time, but a different one. An animator whose back is permanently curved into the shape of his chair, who fell asleep mid-frame with a pencil still in his hand. On the page under his cheek, there's a beach city boardwalk, half-erased waves, and in the corner, a shopkeeper you barely saw in Steven Universe, drawn in 3 quick strokes and then forgotten. Forgotten by you, not by him. In his dream, that man is still sweeping sand out of the doorway. Here is the thing. Once you imagine that, it's hard to stop. The dream jumps. Now it's Gravity Falls, and a nameless tourist is squinting at a Mystery Shack snow globe you don't remember ever seeing. Then it's regular show, and some random park goer is tossing bread at ducks that will never be important to the plot, existing on the edge of a frame that aired once at 4:30 p.m. on a weekday. They flicker as the old man's breathing changes. Entire timelines of background existence, pulsing in time with his REM cycles. We're going to lean into that for a second, because this is where the Prismo-style twist quietly opens up. If a character appears once, gets no lines and then vanishes from the broadcast reality, but has 3 paragraphs of backstory in the series Bible and a doodled family photo in the creator's notes, where do they actually live? On the screen that you watched, on the paper that no one but the crew touched, or in the memory of the one person who cared enough to write their favorite snack in the margins? Think about that for a second. The main characters get all the narrative power, the wishes, the multiverse resets, the plot armor that lets them stand at the center of time while reality collapses around them. But some philosophy professor somewhere is absolutely giving a lecture about whether a background extra with a meticulously planned childhood, a secret fear of elevators, and a cut scene where they almost mattered is, in a weird way, more real than the hero who only exists to fulfill a genre's desire for resolution. They are not famous. They are not even noticed. They are just bound by rules older than ratings. The rule that someone imagined them and never fully let them go. And as you fall asleep, you're quietly doing the same work. You are the old man at the desk now, dreaming a tiny multiverse of half-remembered faces. That one beach city vendor, a Gravity Falls tourist in a sweater you liked, a regular show park goer whose walk cycle felt familiar. They wander the quiet streets of your mind's late-night reruns, replaying scenes that never aired. Because in that specifically Adventure Time way, the question isn't just are they real, but who is still carrying them? Stay with that as we move on. Because there is one background presence you've been carrying for years without realizing it, and their lore bends the whole universe around them. Cosmic clerks and wish granters, the bureaucrats who keep multiverses running. That presence you've been carrying is the cosmic clerk, the bored god behind the desk, the being who looks like a joke, and then 2 lines later, quietly reveals they are the spine of the universe. Here is the thing. In these shows, the multiverse doesn't run on hero speeches, it runs on paperwork. Let's start with the archetype. You've seen them 100 times without really seeing them. The archivist in the back of Infinity, the wish desk worker at the center of time, the administrator of fate who has to file a form every time someone breaks reality. They look like side gags, like the writers are just having fun, but underneath the humor they embody the rules of time, memory, and desire. They are the ones who decide what can be changed, what must be recorded, and what gets quietly erased from existence. Prismo is our anchor here, the 2-dimensional Wishmaster, lounging in his bachelor pad time room, surrounded by infinite screens and an aggressively chill vibe that feels like an 80s sleepover held at the edge of reality. Beanbags, movies, a pickle jar, and then the rule, 1 wish per person per lifetime. No wishing for more wishes, no cheating the system. He has cosmic power, but he's also an employee. He has a boss. He has procedures. He can rewrite a timeline, but he cannot clock out. Think about that for a second. Prismo lives at the center of time, sees every timeline at once, and yet he cannot wish himself a friend who actually stays. He is omnipotent in the way a customer service rep is omnipotent, within policy. He grants your desire, literally, precisely, and then has to sit there and watch the consequences ripple through the multiverse like a cosmic HR audit. And he's not alone. In Gravity Falls, Time Baby and the Time Police float in as a joke about temporal authority. But the moment they appear, the universe locks into a set of rules. There is a schedule for paradoxes. There is enforcement. In regular show, you get these cosmic entities who sign forms and stamp reality, treating apocalypses like annoying paperwork. In Steven Universe, the diamonds look like distant god queens, but function as reluctant administrators, managing colonies, quotas, and the emotional fallout of their own empire. They are not chaos, they are policy given shape. Their scenes are short, but they do enormous narrative work. 1 board line from a time cop can define what can and can't be changed. 1 exasperated sigh from a diamond tells you the cost of rewriting history. A throwaway Prismo rule quietly explains why the multiverse hasn't collapsed under wish-based nonsense. And we're going to keep seeing this pattern, because some of the most powerful characters in these universes are not the ones shouting on the battlefield, but the ones we glimpse for a few seconds, behind a desk, exhausted, overworked, and holding the entire multiverse together with a stamp pad and a policy manual. Prismo's cousins in other universes, Time Baby, Time Cops, and the paperwork of fate, and somewhere, just off screen, there's always another desk, another clipboard, another exhausted cosmic intern making sure reality doesn't faceplant into a paradox. Let's start with Gravity Falls' most ridiculous nightmare, Time Baby, a giant floating diapered god embryo made of pure chronological power. He looks like a joke, like a background gag that wandered in from a weirder cartoon. But here is the thing. In-universe, he is terrifying. Time Baby is explicitly the enforcer of temporal law, the one who can erase you from the timeline, vaporize your descendants, and fine you for time crimes in the same bored tone you'd use to complain about parking tickets. When he confronts Splendin and the kids, you get this glimpse of something huge. One courtroom, one lecture about disrupting the timeline, one punishment sequence where he casually annihilates people with a laser pacifier. That's it. A few minutes of screen time, and suddenly, you understand there is a whole invisible judiciary hanging over every decision anyone makes with a time device. Think about that for a second. Every joke about going back 5 minutes to fix a mistake quietly implies a file, a case number, and a cosmic baby ready to end your existence. Around him, like orbiting satellites of bureaucracy, you have the time police. They barely speak. They're just there, with scanners and clipboards, and this weary, over-it energy that says, "We have processed so many paradox reports this week." They are the Prismo we never get to know. Anonymous, procedural, a whole department dedicated to making sure one selfish wish doesn't crash the universe. A single line about time anomalies, a calendar on the wall, a casual mention of standard paradox resolution protocol, and suddenly you can feel the backlog of centuries of temporal paperwork. Regular show takes that same joke and leans into it. Time travel clerks who treat the flow of time like a customer service queue. Guardians of continuity who clock in, fix a corrupted timeline, and clock out to go microwave leftovers. Cosmic beings watching the multiverse from a cubicle, complaining about their manager while adjusting the center of time with a dial. They are literally handling the fate of existence like it's a shift job, and somehow that makes the power feel bigger, not smaller. We're going to see this pattern again and again. One warning, one cramped courtroom, one throwaway line about time crimes. That's all it takes to imply endless unseen cases, entire archives of lives that almost unraveled. Just like Prismo, these entities sit between chaos and order, powerful yet bound by rules they didn't write, forced to watch heroes break reality for love, curiosity, or in regular show's case, sandwiches. And if Time Baby is the angry supervisor, and the Time Cops are the beat officers, then Prismo is the chill night shift guy at the same cosmic agency, alone in his lounge at the center of time. Which raises a question: if there are Time Cops and Time Clerks and Time Babies, who is actually writing the rules they all follow? To answer that, we have to leave time behind for a moment and look at fate itself, and the side characters who quietly file every destiny you've ever seen on screen. The wish desk. How one-off deals reshape entire timelines in the background, so we leave the filing cabinets of fate behind, and suddenly we're back in a living room at the center of time, staring at a couch that has quietly rewritten more timelines than any villain ever has. Here is the thing. The universe doesn't just bend around prophecies and prophecies interns. It bends around furniture. Around one-off wishes. Around the tiny, impulsive sentences that side characters throw at cosmic beings when the camera almost isn't looking. Let's start with a pattern, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. First, there's the context of the wish. Exhaustion, fear, boredom, hunger. Someone wanders into a time room, a gem chamber, a demonic contract office. Then there's the wording, exact or implied, that little knot of desire they push into reality. Prismo hears, "I wish for the extinction of all life," and the Lich's voice scrapes through existence like nails on the fabric of reality itself. Immediate payoff, farm world. But the subtle long-term consequence is that every background shot of that timeline, the weird weapons, the traumatized civilians, the way Finn's eyes never quite relax, are just echoes of that one sentence. Think about that for a second. One line, and suddenly there are entire episodes that only exist as cleanup. Jake's sandwich wish is the same pattern, just comedic on the surface. The context is hunger and curiosity. The exact wording is the perfect sandwich, and the immediate payoff is delicious. That's it. Joke over. Except, you keep seeing how reality, in that specifically Adventure Time way, is willing to warp physics, summon cosmic pigs, and bend probability just to honor a throwaway culinary desire. Somewhere, a universe rerouted a minor war so the tomatoes would ripen on time. We're going to zoom out and notice that other shows do this too. In Steven Universe, a side character makes an offhand wish on a corrupted gem artifact, and 3 episodes later, there's a background billboard that shouldn't exist, implying an entire altered local history. In Gravity Falls, a civilian signs one of Gideon's contracts, and you only ever see the result as a weird recurring anomaly in the town's skyline. Regular Show is practically a documentary about this. Benson agrees to some cosmic deal for park funding, and for the next season, the background stars are wrong, slightly rearranged. The wish is over. The universe is still paying interest. There is sadness there. Not just in the people who miswish, but in the wish granters who remember every regret. Prismo, sitting on his beanbag at the center of time, knows the exact tone of voice people use when they realize they wasted their one-shot. He is not evil. He is not even indifferent. He is just bound by rules older than the multiverse itself, watching civilians burn their cosmic chances on sandwiches, petty revenges, or vague dreams of fixing everything. And you see the emotional fallout in the background. A shopkeeper who reacts too sharply to magic, as if they once asked for the wrong miracle. A random kid staring at the sky like it used to be different. The main cast never asks why, but the wish desk clerks know. Somewhere, Prismo and all his cosmic co-workers could probably write a handbook of side character mistakes. In this video, we're slowly building toward that. A multiversal side character handbook, a secret rulebook explaining every strange extra you've ever seen. But to finish it, we have to ask a harder question next. What happens when the wish granters themselves break the rules? Rulebooks written in the margins. The unspoken laws of side character power. So here is the thing. When a wish granter breaks the rules, they actually don't. Not in the way you want them to. What looks like rebellion, what feels like a loophole, almost always turns out to be the rulebook you never got to see, written in the margins by 1,000 exhausted cosmic clerks who live at the center of time and answer email. Let's start by naming the patterns you've already felt. 1 major intervention per character, per lifetime. 1 big reality shove. You get your wish, the universe shifts, and that's it. No true takebacks, no undo button. A Prismo wish, a Steven Universe fusion epiphany, a Gravity Falls deal with Bill Cipher. Once it lands, the timeline doesn't snap back, it branches. The old version of reality doesn't vanish. It just gets quietly filed in some backroom of the multiverse where only side characters and archivists ever go. And those archivists are busy, because these beings interpret your desire literally, but not maliciously. They are not genies trying to trick you. They are not the monkey's paw waiting to punish your hubris. They are something stranger and more tired, civil servants of existence. Picture a cosmic DMV, where the counters float in zero gravity and every wish is a form that has to be stamped, logged, and routed to the correct department of reality before it can hit your timeline. Think about that for a second. Somewhere, there is a background entity whose entire job is paradox resolution specialist. When one character wishes for a world where they never met their friends, and another, in a different episode, wishes those same friends would never leave, that's a counter-wish, an impossible knot. You see the drama. They see a ticket number, a red stamp, and a note. Create alternate timeline, reassign emotional continuity to parallel universe, schedule quiet existential crisis for Tuesday. Edge cases don't break the rules. They reveal them. Alternate timelines are just what happens when the system refuses to overwrite a file. Different universes handle paradox with different cleanup crews. In that specifically Adventure Time way, you get Prismo's chill time room where the mess is hidden behind cozy lighting and a pickle jar. In other shows, it's a glowing library, a memory vault, a weird train that goes nowhere. But the pattern is the same. Heroes cause spectacle, side characters sweep up the shattered reality in the background. We're going to compare them to the classics for a moment. Old-school genies and fairy bargains weaponize ambiguity. You phrase it wrong, you suffer. Modern cosmic side characters weaponize procedure. They soften the cruelty with humor, with beanbags, with clipboards. The monkey's paw becomes a help desk. You still get exactly what you asked for, but now there's a ticket number and a hold music theme. And underneath all that power, the real tension isn't power at all, it's policy. What these beings are allowed to feel versus what they're allowed to do. Prismo can care, he can want. He can ache with loneliness as he watches every timeline scroll by. But he cannot say no to a clear wish. He cannot warn you past a certain point. He cannot take it back once the multiverse has filed it. Here is the quiet horror and the quiet comfort. The side character gods are overworked, underempowered, and emotionally entangled with people they are not allowed to save. That's the rulebook in the margins. And in the next section, we'll watch how that same pattern shrinks down into the tiniest side characters. The ones without cosmic power, but with the exact same constraint written into their lives. Lonely gods on night shift. The existential weight of being a side cosmic entity. And if the side character gods are overworked and underempowered, here is the thing. They are also alone. Not poetically alone. Prismo in the time room. Time baby hovering above history. The diamonds sealed in distant palaces at the edges of the multiverse. Each one parked at their own weird cosmic desk, watching a universe they do not actually get to live in. Let's start with Prismo, because you already know the vibe. The center of time is dressed up as a sleepover. Movies looping on infinite screens. Video games that pickle jar on the table like a prop from a forgotten Bachelor sitcom. He has guests, sure. Jake drops in. Finn stumbles through on a quest. The Lich arrives like a walking extinction event. But when the wish is made and the timeline snaps into its new shape, they leave. He stays. He presses play on another movie he's already seen from every possible angle and waits for the next knock on the door. Time Baby is the same joke told in a different register. This colossal infant god, floating above the Gravity Falls timeline like a screensaver that could vaporize you, technically rules eras. He can bend reality, rewrite history, squash you with a laser from his pacifier. But most of the time, he is just there, suspended above parades and catastrophes, stamping metaphorical forms on the flow of time. A cosmic middle manager in a diaper who only matters when someone files the right narrative paperwork. And then the diamonds. Obsidian palaces in Steven Universe, halls so large that a single voice echoes like a meteor crossing the void. They command armies. They terraform worlds. But watch what they actually do on screen. sit on thrones, pace balconies, talk to each other about the one person who left. Their power is enormous and their social circle is microscopic. Think about that for a second. You can reformat a planet, but you cannot get a real hug without destroying the person you're holding. We're going to see this pattern over and over. Omnipotence with an asterisk. Prismo can warp any timeline, but only when someone speaks a wish and the rules allow it. Time Baby can obliterate you, but only within the bureaucratic script of his universe. The diamonds can shatter gems by pointing, but they are still dependent on tiny, fragile people to walk into their orbit and say, "Hey, I see you," instead of, "Hey, fix me." They are gods on night shift, waiting for visitors who mostly see them as tools. Which leads to the quieter horror. What are you? If you mostly exist when someone else remembers to call you. Prismo is literally a dream. If the old man wakes up, the Wishmaster vanishes. Time Baby flickers in and out of relevance, depending on whether anyone in the narrative bothers to look up. The diamonds only soften when Steven insists they are more than their empire. Is being imagined enough? Is a life made of cameos still a life? In this video, that question isn't just about them, because if even beings at the center of time can be side characters in their own existence, what does that say about the nameless faces in the crowd below, the background workers in the cosmic office, the one-episode baristas, the monsters of the week who go home after losing? In the next section, we'll drift down from the palaces and time rooms into that crowd, and watch how the same loneliness plays out with no power at all. The crowd below. Background civilians as the world's beating heart. So when we finally drift down from the center of time, from wishmasters and liches and multiverse paperwork, we land somewhere much quieter. A sidewalk, a boardwalk, the line at a coffee cart. No glowing eyes, no destiny, just the crowd below, breathing in the fallout of someone else's adventure. Here is the thing. Every cosmic event needs witnesses. Not the heroes, not the villains, but the recurring townsfolk, the classmates, the park visitors, the shop customers who almost never speak and somehow never leave. They are the ones holding the baseline of reality. They are the metronome. You see them in Beach City, clustered around the Big Donut. You see them in Gravity Falls, milling through the Mystery Shack gift shop. You see them in Regular Show, wandering past the park, while Mordecai and Rigby tear a hole in the universe again. They rarely get names. Sometimes they barely get faces. But they absorb consequences like emotional shock absorbers for the timeline. A fusion battle shatters a boardwalk in Steven Universe, and the Beach City residents are the ones picking through the rubble, arguing about property damage, complaining that this is the third weird light show this month. Think about that for a second. Their boredom is the measure of how often reality breaks. In Gravity Falls, when the sky folds into geometric nightmares and time melts, it is the locals' reactions that tell you how far past normal we've gone. Not Dipper with his journal, not Bill with his cosmic monologues. It's the guy who just wanted to buy a novelty mug, now calmly screaming as the mug sprouts eyes. Fear, annoyance, resignation. These tiny reactions do more world-building than any lore dump. They tell you what ordinary used to be and how far the universe has drifted from it. Regular Show takes this to a stranger place. The park regulars keep showing up around the edges of apocalypses that technically resolve by the end of the shift. Reality resets, but you still see the same random joggers, the same background families, like the universe itself is pretending nothing happened. We're going to call that denial as a setting, not a bug. In this video, we're going to treat those faces like constellations. On a rewatch, you notice the Beach City guy who always runs from danger a second too late. The Gravity Falls background teen who appears in the arcade, then at the fair, then in the weird Mageddon crowd, steadily more exhausted. Quiet arcs, hidden in plain sight, moving across episodes like stars you only see once your eyes adjust. Because if Prismo can be a side character in his own existence, what about the woman who always boards the bus right before the portal opens? What has the universe done to her commute? And in the next section, we'll pick a few of those almost invisible lives and follow them all the way through, until one of them suddenly stops being background at all. Beach City's silent chorus, the residents who carried Stephen's burdens off-screen. Let's start in the least cosmic place imaginable. The line at the Big Donut. There's no portal open, no corrupted gem roaring over the horizon, just a tired guy in a baseball cap, waiting for his usual order while Stephen wipes powdered sugar off the counter. But here is the thing. That guy has been there before, and after Malachite, after Jasper, after the cluster almost tears the planet in half, he is still there in the same spot, ordering the same donut in a universe that has quietly survived another catastrophe it didn't consent to. If you watch Beach City like you'd watch the center of time, scanning every timeline frame by frame, you start to notice them. The donut shop regulars who always seem to be in the background when Stephen sprints out to deal with some impossible threat. The beachgoers who flinch when a light cannon fires, then return to their towels like people who have slowly normalized the apocalypse. Nameless passers-by who pause, look up at a spaceship hovering over their town, and then go back to walking the dog. Think about that for a second. The show keeps quietly updating their reality. A storefront that used to be intact is suddenly boarded up after a battle. A shattered window is mysteriously repaired next episode, but the awning never comes back, like the budget ran out or the insurance claim stalled. Some crowds get smaller after the really big conflicts, the way a beach empties after a storm even when the sun is out again. No one announces it. No one gives a speech. The art direction just lets you feel the economic and emotional fallout in the edges of the frame. And we're going to connect that right back to Stephen. His whole arc is about this impossible wish to protect everyone, to keep every timeline where Beach City still exists, still laughs, still sells fries. The camera keeps cutting back to civilians, not because they're comic relief, but because they are the scoreboard. Every time you see them living, joking, buying donuts, the universe is quietly confirming. Yes, this time the power you used to save the world did not erase the world you were trying to save. Behind that, there's creator intent humming like a low, constant chord. In storyboards and series Bibles, those background characters are often given tiny routines, motivations, even names that never make it into dialogue. The woman who always jogs past the temple, she has a set route. The fisherman on the pier, he has a favorite spot and a lucky hat. They are not random. They are rules of Beach City's existence. Invisible algorithms that make the town feel like it keeps going when the camera looks away. Pattern interrupt. Imagine if one of them kept detailed notes. A personal log of every weird light show and earthquake that wasn't. Suddenly, Stephen's saga becomes a conspiracy wall in some background apartment. And the softest part is this. Long after the credits roll on any given battle, somewhere in Beach City there is a character you never noticed, sweeping glass out of a doorway, resetting their tiny corner of reality, making sure that when Stephen looks back tomorrow, there is still a town there to carry his burdens with him. Silently, in the background, Gravity Falls blink and miss residents. Mystery through background repetition. If Beach City is sweeping glass out of the doorway, Gravity Falls is the town that just shrugs, sweeps the demon sigil into the dustpan with it, and flips the sign to open again. Let's start with the faces you keep seeing but never really see. There's the bearded guy who's always 3 people back in a crowd shot. The woman with the same sun hat who appears at the Gobblewonka Lake, at the Mystery Fair, at the imminent apocalypse of Weirdmageddon like she is following some invisible tour brochure of escalating chaos. They are not reacting like you would, not screaming, not fleeing the universe, just mildly inconvenienced by yet another tier in reality opening next to the food truck. Here is the thing. Gravity Falls teaches you, very quietly, that repetition is its own law. The same mailman delivers letters on perfectly normal mornings and on days when the sky is briefly replaced by an eye. Think about that for a second. From his perspective, the timeline where gnomes kidnap a child and the timeline where nothing happens are the same Tuesday. The power of the show is that it never stops to explain him. It just lets him exist, calmly calibrating how much weirdness a human can absorb before it becomes background noise. And the town itself plays along. Background props evolve like they have their own secret character arcs. Missing posters appear, fade, and are replaced, suggesting people who vanished between episodes with no dramatic music cue. Storefronts change hands, signs get boarded up, graffiti accumulates little symbols that only make sense once you've seen the journals. A get-rich-quick flyer in Season 1 becomes a boarded-up, closed-for-investigation window in Season 2, and nobody points at it, nobody wishes on it. But the universe of the show feels like it keeps moving whether the camera is there or not. We're going to notice, on a rewatch, how a random tourist from the Mystery Shack gift shop suddenly reappears, standing way too close to Bill Cipher's arrival, or lurking near a major clue. Not speaking, just present. A silent barometer of how far the town has slipped from normal. Early on, he takes photos like this is a fun roadside attraction. Later, the same pose, but you can see the eyes are wider, the shoulders tighter, as if existence has bent too many times in front of him. On the second or third viewing, you start tracking these people the way you would track a cosmic wish in the center of time. That background teen at the arcade, the same couple at different festivals. They accumulate micro-arcs, from amused to confused to exhausted to resigned. No dialogue, just a slow acceptance that the rules of their reality are not what they were told. And if you lived there, as one of them, how would you explain it to yourself before bed? Would you call it mass hallucination? A gas leak, a shared dream the multiverse forgot to end? Or would you simply decide that the universe has always been like this, and you just finally noticed the edges? Somewhere between those posters and those faces, the town makes its wish, not for safety, not for power, but for continuity, for the ability to wake up tomorrow and pretend this is normal. And in the next town we visit, that wish is going to take a very different form. Regular shows park people, extras in a cosmic workplace sitcom, and in the next town we visit, that wish is going to take a very different form. Because now we're in the park. Not just any park, but regular shows park, where reality has a punch card and the universe keeps filing complaints with HR. Let's start with the camera. It always opens on Mordecai and Rigby, or Benson, or Skips, but behind them there's this quiet, moving tapestry of kids on the playground. A guy with a kite, someone grilling, a jogger doing laps. The main cast are loud, but the background is always populated, breathing. Here is the thing. The park is a stage that refuses to admit it's a stage. You watch a death bear fall from the sky, or a video game boss erupt out of an arcade cabinet, and behind that, completely unfazed at first, there's some guy on a bench halfway through a sandwich. He is not evil. He is not even important. He is just bound by the same weird rules as everyone else in that timeline, where your quiet weekend can be interrupted by a cosmic karaoke battle at any moment. Think about that for a second. Every time the show tears a hole in reality, there are ordinary people within blast radius. When the sky cracks open into a neon tunnel of fists and 80s synth power, there's a stroller parked 20 feet away. When the park gets dragged into some multiverse bowling alley, there's a yoga class in the background that probably did not wish for extra-dimensional core work. The episodes rarely show you the aftermath, but your brain fills it in. Someone has to go home and explain this. We're going to zoom in on those recurring extras the show keeps quietly reusing. There's that one guy who always seems to be on the same bench, like the park itself issued him a permanent seat. There's a jogger who drifts through episodes, eternally mid-run, as if his entire existence is cardio and confusion. Sometimes you catch a parent with a stroller, frozen for a beat while a laser blast redraws the sky. No dialogue, just witness. Witness to power they never asked to see. This is where regular show's central theme sharpens. The clash between mundane jobs and surreal adventures is not just about employees trapped in cosmic nonsense. It's about civilians trying to have a normal day, while the universe experiments with being a sitcom. The park people make the absurdity feel heavier because suddenly it's not just a gag, it's collateral existence. Their presence says, this is a workplace, but it's also a neighborhood. And somewhere in that neighborhood, one of these park goers is at a party or in a break room, telling a friend about that one time the sky opened up and a giant baby head judged everyone's worth, and no one believes them. It's just a story now, a wish for acknowledgement that never gets granted. But if this park is only one stage in one universe, what happens to the extras when the show zooms out even further? When the camera looks away, side characters living between episodes. So when the show zooms out, when the universe pulls the camera away from that park and that giant baby head and all that cosmic judgment, something strange happens. The episode ends. The credits roll, the streaming app suggests the next episode. But inside the world you just left, existence doesn't hit pause. Not really, not in your mind. Here is the thing. Television is a magic trick that only works because you agree to be fooled. You see maybe 22 minutes of a character's life, total, spread across an entire season, and your brain quietly fills in the rest of the timeline with invisible days and invisible nights. The world feels real because you assume everyone keeps living in the dark, in the spaces between scenes, while the camera is off chasing the main quest. Let's start with the smallest people in the biggest disasters. A monster tears through a city street. The heroes shout, reality bends. The soundtrack swells, and in the very edge of the frame, there's a shopkeeper watching his storefront window explode. The cut jumps to the battle. We never go back. But in your head, somewhere after the final punch, he's sweeping up glass under flickering neon, calculating whether insurance covers rampaging abomination, locking the door with hands that are still shaking. In Gravity Falls, a local might spend 5 seconds on screen, sweeping up gnome glitter after some cursed parade of bearded chaos. The camera treats it as a gag, a visual punctuation mark. But think about that for a second. Glitter is insidious. That guy is still finding sparkles in his hairline 3 weeks later, quietly questioning his place in the multiverse, while he wipes down a counter and pretends this is normal. Beach City, after a gem event, looks calm again. The camera follows Steven and the crystal gems home. Somewhere in the background, a teen who never got a name is sitting on their bed, scrolling their phone, refreshing a feed that is already rewriting what just happened into memes and shaky footage. They were there. They felt the shockwave. Now they're just grounded, with homework, living in the afterglow of a cosmic incident no one will ever fully explain to them. Creators hint at all of this with tiny, almost invisible signals. A background character shows up 3 episodes later with a bandage on the wrong arm. A regular show extra has a different hoodie, a new haircut, a slightly more exhausted posture, like time has actually passed. No exposition, no speech, just a different mood, a quiet continuity that tells you they have a life you don't see, ruled by events that never make it into the plot. And we're going to admit something uncomfortable here. Most of us live exactly like that. You are the protagonist in your own mind, sure, but you are a side character in almost everyone else's story. You walk through their episodes as the co-worker in the background, the stranger on the bus, the neighbor carrying groceries at the worst possible time. They see 5 seconds of you. They infer the rest. There is power in that. And loneliness. You carry a whole universe of memories and desire and private rules inside your skull, and almost none of it ever gets screen time. There is sadness there. There is also relief. No one has to watch you brushing your teeth. Somewhere, in some animated neighborhood, all those forgotten side characters are doing exactly that right now. The shopkeeper locks up. The Gravity Falls janitor turns off the lights. The Beach City teen plugs in their phone. They go home, wash their face, stare at themselves for a moment in a bathroom mirror that has seen too much, and they lie down in beds that have never once appeared on screen. The episode is over for you. For them, it's just another night. The camera looks away, time keeps moving, and the universe of their quiet routines stretches on into the dark, until even they drift off, like you, into a place with no credits and no audience at all. Guardians at the threshold, minor gatekeepers, with major implications. And as those unseen nights stretch on, there's always someone still awake, still on duty, sitting behind a desk at the edge of reality, waiting for a door that almost never opens. Let's start with that archetype, because it's everywhere once you notice it. Door guards, receptionists, librarians who file books that rewrite themselves when the timeline shivers, ticket takers at portals that look like cheap turnstiles and are actually the spinal column of the multiverse. They are the guardians at the threshold, the people who don't throw punches, they just decide whether punches are even allowed to enter the room. Here is the thing. In shows obsessed with cosmic power, the person with the stamp pad is often more important than the person with the laser eyes. Think about that for a second. In regular show, you get that multiversal office, this beige bureaucratic pocket at the center of time, where reality-warping paperwork goes to be bored. Behind the counter there's a clerk, headset on, barely looking up while universes flicker past in the background. He's not framed as a god, he's framed as an employee. But when he approves a form, a timeline continues. When he misfiles one, an entire version of existence quietly falls off the shelf. Gravity Falls does the same joke and the same horror, with its forbidden areas, some exhausted gatekeeper outside a sealed bunker, half believing the warnings, half just following rules printed on a laminated sheet. Dipper and Mabel show up, and this person's choice to enforce protocol or to look the other way for two kids with a flashlight and too much desire to know decides whether an ancient entity stays locked underground or gets one more crack at daylight. Steven Universe tucks it into a throwaway line, an offhand gem administrator buried somewhere in the homeworld hierarchy, assigning missions, processing reports about insignificant colonies. They deny one request, rubber stamp another, and suddenly a doomed outpost gets just enough time for one rebel fusion to escape, or for one corrupted gem to be found by exactly the right person. No battle, no speech, just a tiny clerical nudge that makes the future possible. We're going to notice the imbalance here. These characters outrank villains in microscopic, precise contexts. At this door, they are the final boss. At this archive, their bored shrug overrides any weapon. And yet the narrative treats them as jokes, speed bumps, obstacles you forget as soon as the heroes squeeze past. But if you slow down, if you watch them the way Prismo watches a wish forming on someone's lips, you start to feel the weight. One stamp, one denial, one moment of, I didn't see you. That is all it takes to tilt a universe. And tonight, we're going to follow one of them all the way down. One especially overlooked guardian, a background gatekeeper who, if you take their job seriously, quietly rewrites how their entire universe works. They've been there the whole time, holding the door, while you were looking at the people running through it. The multiversal clerk, a one-scene character who quietly outranks everyone. So let's start with the quietest apocalypse you've ever seen. No meteors, no lich, no swirling portal at the center of time. Just a fluorescent hum, a chipped counter, and a cosmic clerk in a rolling chair, stamping forms that decide which realities get to keep existing. The camera glides past the heroes arguing, and there, behind them, is the desk that might as well be the spinal cord of the multiverse. Here is the thing. You've met this character 100 times, in Adventure Time, in Steven Universe, in Gravity Falls, in every show that flirts with multiverse logic, and then needs someone to keep the rules straight. They're usually bored. They're usually drinking coffee. They are processing requests to reboot timelines, to undo paradoxes, to file a formal complaint about an erased universe, and the heroes treat them like they're TSA at the edge of existence. Impatient, cracking jokes, trying to speed-run the dialogue so they can get back to the dramatic part of reality. Watch how they talk to the clerk. Yeah, just sign us through. We don't need the explanation. Can you, hurry? The tone is always the same. This is red tape, not power. This is an obstacle, not a character. But the clerk is the only one in the room who doesn't raise their voice. They don't posture, they don't glow. They just have the authority to stamp "Denied" on a universe. Think about that for a second. Because implied in that little stamp is absurd, almost Prismo-level power. One absent-minded gesture, and your wish to fix a broken timeline gets rerouted into a 12-cycle audit. One eyebrow raise, and your paradox gets flagged for review, shunted into a back room of existence where time moves differently and nobody calls you back. They are not evil. They are not even indifferent. They are just bound by rules older than the heroes themselves, with the discretion to say, "Come back tomorrow," to an entire apocalypse. In this video, we're going to treat their unseen day like it matters. Endless queues of reality benders, each convinced their desire is urgent. Paperwork about universes that accidentally duplicated. Forms for lost memories. For resurrected planets. For timelines that forked because someone wished too hard. Coffee breaks between apocalypses, where the clerk scrolls through infinite screens and quietly watches a small, unremarkable world where nobody ever fills out a form at all. And tucked into that is a tiny, dark joke the multiverse keeps telling. The fate of existence is not always decided by the hero's final blow, or the villain's last wish, but by whether the office ran out of toner, whether the multiversal clerk slept well, whether they notice a little anomaly on page 12. That is the paradox at the heart of this side character. Functionally minor, cosmically central, because somewhere in that stack of ignored paperwork is a file with a name you recognize, a hero you care about. And the moment the clerk finally pulls it out and reads it, that's where we're going next. Stamp, sign, and sleep. The emotional life of cosmic paper pushers, and the moment the clerk finally pulls it out and reads it, that's where everything stops moving for a second. Not the multiverse, not the timelines, just them. Just this one overworked cosmic paper pusher, staring at a name they recognize from 3 universes over, feeling that tiny, traitorous flicker of interest they were trained to file under unhelpful emotional response. Here is the thing. Even in a reality that runs on rules and forms and signatures, someone still has to care enough to sign. Let's start way back at the beginning of their arc, the part no episode ever shows you. Day 1 at the center of time. Fresh ID badge. Desk that hasn't yet been buried under paradox waivers. They believe in the system. They believe that if they process every wish request correctly, every timeline adjustment cleanly, the universe will make sense. It won't be fair, exactly, but at least it will be ordered. That's the dream. And then time happens. Not to you. To them, to the clerk who remembers every erased timeline, every denied appeal, every universe that almost was and then got quietly stamped non-viable and dissolved back into cosmic static. Simple declarative. They do their job. Vivid metaphor. They are a librarian of ghosts, filing away entire existences that no one else will ever even know were possible. Think about that for a second. We're going to loop this back to Prismo, because his whole laid-back movie night vibe is the friendly face of the same machine. He jokes, he lounges, he offers you pickles while he rewrites your reality. But there is that Prismo sadness, that exact mix of chill humor and deep old exhaustion you only get from seeing too much and being able to change too little. Now imagine 100 Prismo-adjacent clerks, without the couch, without the visitors, just the paperwork of desire. They cope in tiny, almost pathetic ways that feel enormous when you live outside of linear time. A doodle of a forgotten hero in the margin of Form 7C. A little constellation of snack wrappers orbiting a monitor that shows 17 doomed timelines at once. A running joke with the coworker 3 windows down about that one reality where everyone is mayonnaise. Dry, absurd, and just barely keeping them from screaming into the multiverse. They trade stories about weird cases on their breaks. The wish that technically complied with the rules, but produced a universe made entirely of stairs. The erased world that still shows up as after-image static on their screens, like the universe itself is refusing to forget. They remember it all, because someone has to. There is sadness there, resignation, but also a strange, stubborn tenderness for realities that never got to be. And here is the quiet tragedy. In another version of the story, one of these clerks is the protagonist. They rebel. They walk off the job. They save a timeline they were supposed to delete. In this video, though, they're just a face behind a window, a voice behind glass, nudging the plot an inch, and then vanishing. Pattern interrupt. What if they don't vanish next time? What if one clerk hesitates 1 second too long over one file? That hesitation is where the next part of our story is waiting. The rules beneath the rules. Synthesizing the side character systems, so that hesitation hangs there, one cosmic heartbeat long, like a cursor blinking at the center of time. The file is still in the clerk's hand. The universe is still waiting. And here is the thing. That tiny pause is not an exception to the rules. It is the rule beneath the rules, the quiet system that governs every side character you barely remember. Let's start by pulling together what we've seen. Whether it's a cosmic clerk, a background barista, or a nameless guardian at the edge of a portal, they all operate on 3 invisible themes: limited interventions, implied off-screen lives, and a constant negotiation between narrative necessity and emotional truth. They can't hijack the story. They can't outshine the heroes. But they also can't be hollow, because then the reality around the heroes collapses into cardboard. So we're going to sketch, very gently, a side character rulebook. First rule, consistency of appearance. That mailman you glimpse in one episode of Adventure Time, then again 3 seasons later, is not an accident. He's a thread, stitching timelines together in that specifically Adventure Time way. Second rule, reaction shots as world building. When Beach City watches a gem ship fall from the sky in Steven Universe, the camera lingers on terrified civilians, and those faces silently expand the universe more than any lore dump. Third rule, small choices with big ripple effects. A regular show park employee hits the wrong switch, or a Gravity Falls tourist snaps the wrong photo, and suddenly the multiverse is wobbling. Think about that for a second. These characters are not just background, they're pressure gauges. In Adventure Time, side characters test what it means to be alive in a world that already ended, and then kept going. Every Candy citizen's panic or resilience is a tiny referendum on existence after apocalypse. In Steven Universe, side characters hold the ethical questions: who gets informed, who gets scared, who forgives the gems when reality itself has been lying to them. Gravity Falls uses its weird little townsfolk as a chorus about paranoia and belief. They're the people who have to live with the portal turning on, with time anomalies, with the sense that reality has hairline fractures. Regular show goes the other way. Its side characters embody the absurdity of power. A random hot dog, a VHS tape, a gumball machine boss. All of them can suddenly warp time, rewrite a wish, or threaten the universe because someone clocked in for a minimum wage shift. Without these people, these creatures, these quiet cosmic interns, the worlds would feel hollow, the stakes would feel fake, the hero's struggles would just float in a void, disconnected from any wider existence. Side characters are the glue that makes every wish matter, the background radiation that proves the universe is actually there when the camera isn't looking. And now that we've mapped the systems, we're going to slow down. In the next part, we'll follow a few almost forgotten faces through their own tiny arcs, watching how one throwaway line, one reaction shot, one delayed signature on one cosmic form can bend an entire timeline while the heroes sleep. The background of the background, a civilian's secret arc across seasons. So let's start small, not with a lich, not with a cosmic wish, but with a kid you've seen 100 times and never really met. Third from the left on the beach city boardwalk. Faded orange hoodie, chipped skateboard, headphones that are always around their neck but never actually on. Here is the thing. The background of the background is still alive. In their very first appearance, they're just there, leaning against the arcade window while Steven sings about breakfast. No dialogue, no focus. But if you track them, episode by episode, they begin to pull their own secret orbit around the hero's gravity. Next time, they're on the beach, hoodie off. T-shirt from a band we only ever see again as a tiny poster in Sadie's room. Their board is newer. No chips yet. They flinch when a corrupted gem roars in the distance, then pretend they didn't. They are not a hero. They are not a coward. They are just someone who lives in a universe where reality screams sometimes. Think about that for a second. The show cuts away. The battle happens off-screen. But for this one civilian, that day was the day a wave of light shattered half the arcade windows, and their part-time job quietly vanished. Later, we see them helping Mr. Smiley sweep glass off the boardwalk. Same kid, now with a wrist brace and a help wanted sign taped behind them. No one points it out. The camera just glides past. Like time. We're going to keep following. A season later, they're in the crowd at a Beachapalooza concert, standing a little too close to another background teen we've also been ignoring. Shared soda, shared blanket when the night gets cold. When the sky tears open with some new cosmic disaster, they don't run this time. They squeeze each other's hands and look up like people who have accepted they live at the center of time and weirdness now. By the last season, the hoodie has pins on it. Little UFOs, a tiny lapis sticker. Their board is covered in doodles of eyes and stars and triangles, like they've been binge-watching Gravity Falls conspiracy videos in universe. Every reaction shot tells you their desire has shifted from fear to fascination. They're not just surviving the multiverse anymore. They're studying it, and behind all of that, you can feel the animators quietly adopting them. A storyboard artist gives them one extra frame of a smile. A writer sneaks them into the outline margin. Skate Kid reacts. No one had to do that. There are no rules saying a background civilian needs a timeline, but the crew gives them one anyway, for their own satisfaction, like a tiny side quest in the margins of existence. So imagine this, end of the day, monster dust still in the air, our background kid in bed, headphones finally on. They stare at the ceiling and replay the episode you just watched from a completely different angle. No theme song, no credits, just the soft hum of the universe and the quiet question, what if tomorrow is weirder? And the next section is going to answer that, because they're not the only one. Reaction shots as silent monologues, how extras tell the truth. They're not the only one, because the universe is full of kids like that. Not just kids, really. Baristas, mailmen, lumpy tourists, terrified wizards, caught in the wide shot while reality melts down in front of them. The camera pretends they're background, but here is the thing. Animation keeps coming back to their faces. The director could cut away. They don't. They linger. Let's start with the crowd, because the crowd is the closest thing a show has to the world's nervous system. During a big battle, you'll see fear ripple through a sea of eyes before the first punch lands. During a miracle, you'll see awe hit like a wave, mouths open, shoulders dropping, time almost pausing. During a royal speech, you'll catch that one guy in the third row whose entire soul is saying, "I wish I were literally anywhere else." Think about that for a second. A whole cosmic event, and the emotional truth is hiding in one board extra. In Steven Universe, when Steven fuses in front of the townsfolk, the show does this beautifully cruel thing. It cuts to the crowd. You get that quick, stunned silence. The worry, the way some people lean in with curiosity, while others lean back like reality just broke a rule they didn't consent to. Steven thinks he's finally stepping into power, into identity, into this glowing wish to be understood. But the town's faces whisper a different story. Fear, confusion, a timeline shaking under his feet. Gravity Falls does it during Weirdmageddon. Reality is literally liquefying, the multiverse is brushing against this tiny Oregon town, and the locals' reaction shots become a kind of silent census of panic. Some are screaming, some are frozen, some are weirdly resigned, like, yeah, this tracks. Mabel and Dipper are busy saving existence. The crowd is busy proving that existence is not taking this well. Regular show pushes it into deadpan absurdity. The park goers during a meltdown, sky cracking, vending machines turning into kaiju, will often just stand there with this exhausted, not again expression. No dialogue. Just the face of a man who wanted a quiet day off and got dragged into a cosmic boss battle. He is not evil. He is not even impressed. He is just done. We're going to treat those tiny expressions as what they really are. Wordless monologues. Each extra gets half a second to deliver their entire philosophy of life through one flinch, one eye roll, one tear. Statement. Repetition with variation. Fear, then acceptance, then that microscopic shrug that says, "I guess this is my timeline now." If you watch an episode again and ignore the hero, just track the background faces, you unlock a parallel story. A second audio track with no sound. You start to see who adapts, who resists, who stops looking up when the sky tears open for the third time this week. On your next rewatch, try it. Let the main character blur a little and follow the crowd instead. You'll see a whole emotional universe blooming at the edges of the frame. And in the next section, we're going to find out what happens when one of those background faces finally steps forward and the camera at long last refuses to look away. The ones who clean up invisible labor after the credits roll. So you follow that background face for once, and the camera finally, mercifully, stays with them. But here is the thing. When the credits roll, their work is only just beginning. Let's start with the morning after the apocalypse that technically wasn't. The monster is gone, the cosmic wish has been unwished, the timeline has been duct-taped back together. The heroes high-five, the music swells, and somewhere, off to the edge of the frame, somebody is already making a list. Broken windows, uprooted trees, cracked roads. A kid who hasn't stopped shaking since the sky glitched. In Beach City, every gem fight leaves a crater in the sand, a temple wall chipped, a boardwalk stall smashed like it offended the universe personally. We cut from laser light shows to peaceful sunsets, but we never sit with the people who haul driftwood, who patch the donut shop, who sweep up corrupted gem shards like they're just another Tuesday hazard. The show implies it, with those quick wide shots of everything magically fine again. Fine, but only because someone stayed late. Gravity Falls does the same magic trick. An interdimensional triangle demon tears open reality, and next episode the town is functioning, not healed. Functioning. That means there was a night where the Mystery Shack's neighbors were out with ladders and duct tape and too much coffee, where somebody had to explain to a terrified 8-year-old Why the sky turned into a screaming eye and then pretended it didn't. Think about that for a second. You remember Bill Cipher's laugh? Do you remember the guy who fixed the power lines? Over in the park, regular show treats reality like a suggestion. Time loops, wish-granting keyboards, the multiverse collapsing because someone bowled aggressively. And yet, by the next shift, the grass is trimmed, the gazebo is standing, and the snack bar is inexplicably open. There is an invisible army of groundskeepers, electricians, and very tired insurance adjusters living in the negative space between episodes. They have no names, no lines, no fan art, but the universe quietly leans on them. We're going to zoom out for a moment, because this isn't just cartoon logic, it's a mirror. In our world, most of existence is held together by people you never recognize. The night janitor who erases the evidence of your day. The road crew pouring asphalt at 3 a.m. The grocery workers restocking shelves, so the apocalypse you experienced was just they were out of your favorite cereal. They don't get main character music cues. They get time cards. And in that specifically Adventure Time way, the cosmos itself runs on this kind of maintenance. Prismo grants the wish, but some nameless cosmic clerk files the paperwork in the background of the multiverse, making sure the new timeline doesn't collapse on contact. So picture this. The battle is over. The heroes have gone home. The credits have long finished. A nameless worker stands under a flickering street lamp, sweeping glass into a dull grey pile. No audience, no soundtrack. Just the soft scrape of the broom, keeping reality livable for tomorrow's episode. Comic relief, tragic core, joke characters with hidden depth. And here is the thing. Sometimes that nameless worker under the street lamp is also the punchline. The universe points at them, laughs, and then quietly builds an entire emotional timeline on their shoulders, while you're still giggling. Let's start with the archetype itself. These are the characters whose designs are loud, whose jokes are broad, whose very existence in the frame feels like a sight gag, and yet, if you tilt your head just a little, their situation is quietly devastating. They are the clown at the edge of the apocalypse. They are the person who makes everyone else in the room feel better while never actually getting to change their own fate. Think about that for a second in regular show. You meet someone like the duck who keeps getting reset, or the guy who's trapped in an endless montage, stuck in a loop because Mordecai and Rigby broke some cosmic rules of time. On the surface, it's hilarious. The editing is jumpy, the music slaps, the absurdity is the point. But underneath, the joke implies an existence where this poor side character's life has been sliced into reruns, where their entire reality is a glitch the heroes caused and then walked away from. Gravity Falls does the same trick in a different register. A gag character like the guy fused into a billboard, or the background citizen who keeps getting reality warped every time Bill Cipher sneezes on the multiverse, is there to make you laugh at how broken this town is. But every time the timeline shudders, that character's body remembers. The show never lingers on it. You're not supposed to cry over Manly Dan's friend who turned into a sofa. And yet the implication is dark. Being a joke in a collapsing universe means you still feel pain. You just don't get a close-up. Steven Universe takes it even further with humor wrapped around fusion. You get a fusion like Smoky Quartz who crack jokes and juggle weapons, or a comedic off-balance fusion framed as, "Look how weird this is." It's funny. It's meant to be. But the entire existence of that fusion is rooted in trauma, insecurity, or generational hurt. The laugh track is laid directly over the sound of people trying to survive each other. We're going to notice how humor here acts as a pattern interrupt. You're watching bright colors, silly faces, a goofy line delivery, and then, without warning, you've inhaled a meditation on identity, consent, or existential dread. The joke slips past your defenses. It makes the heavy idea palatable, while still planting it deep in the back of your mind, where it can grow later, quietly, while you're trying to fall asleep. Fans feel that weight, even if the episode never spells it out. One stray line, one haunted reaction shot, one prop in the background, and suddenly there's 100,000-word tragedy on a forum explaining how this throwaway gag character remembers every reset, every wish, every erased timeline. In that specifically Adventure Time way, the fandom becomes a second time room, replaying and reinterpreting the same 3 seconds of animation until an entire existence unfolds. And maybe that's the secret. Sometimes the characters we laugh at hardest are the ones the writers care about most, precisely because they will never stand at the center of time, never get the wish, never headline the finale. They are loved in the margins, protected in implication, given depth in absence. Which raises a question the shows almost never answer out loud. What happens when one of those joke characters finally refuses to stay in the background? The Guardian who never got an episode. A one-scene protector's unseen burden. So let's answer it by zooming in on someone the camera almost forgot. One shot, one line, a whole universe of implication. You've seen versions of them before. The stoic guard in front of a glowing door in Adventure Time. The silent gem fused into the wall of some forgotten temple in Steven Universe. The cosmic bouncer checking wristbands at a reality-bending venue in a show that plays its multiverse like a running gag. Let's start with the image. They stand at the threshold. Behind them, light that doesn't behave, swirling with colors that don't exist on any normal spectrum. A portal or gate or elevator that leads sideways through time instead of forward. In front of them, our heroes, full of desire and plot armor, asking to be let through. The Guardian's job is simple. Block the way, enforce the rules someone else wrote, maintain order against curiosity, chaos, and whatever weirdness the storyboard artists snuck into the background. In their single scene, they barely move, maybe they lift a hand, palm out, and the whole reality of the hallway hums like a held breath. Maybe they say, "You can't go in there," in a voice that sounds like it has said this 1,000 times before, to better people, to worse monsters, to versions of these same kids in slightly different timelines. And then, here is the thing. There's that flicker, a half-second of hesitation, a tiny eye dart toward the door, or a softening on the last syllable. The show doesn't call attention to it, but you feel the conflict anyway, because a character like that only makes sense if they've been there far longer than this episode will ever admit. They have watched ages pass like channel flips. They have turned away villains, yes, but also desperate parents, lonely scientists, a version of the main character who already failed once and came back begging for a do-over wish. Think about that for a second. How many lives did they reroute with a single no, delivered at the center of time in a hallway no one remembers? We're going to imagine the cost. They missed birthdays that never happened, relationships that could not survive an eternity-long shift, an entire personal existence traded away for the power to say stop at the exact point where the universe wants to say go. Duty versus freedom, boiled down into a person who never even gets a name card. Safety versus curiosity, manifest as a locked door with a tired face in front of it. Order versus chaos, held back not by magic beams, but by someone's exhausted conviction that the rules still matter. And in that specifically Adventure Time way, the show lets that tension hang in the air and then just cuts away. The plot squeezes past on a loophole, or gets bounced and finds another route through the multiverse, and we follow the heroes because that's where the camera wants to live. But the Guardian doesn't get to leave with us. When the credits roll, they are still there, alone with their thoughts, the humming door at their back, and an endless, unwitnessed night shift that stretches out across all of time. Creators' secret favorites, the side characters loved behind the scenes. And here is the quiet twist. While that Guardian is standing there in the dark, someone on the other side of the screen is thinking about them way more than you ever did. Let's start with this secret that animation people talk about in hushed, slightly sleep-deprived tones, a shocking number of side characters begin as jokes, an in-house dare, a caricature of the storyboard artist who always brings cold pizza, a doodle in the margin of a production meeting that for some reason makes one writer laugh every single time they see it. And then, in that specifically Adventure Time way, the joke refuses to stay small. It grows gravity. It starts to bend the timeline of the show around itself. You can feel it in the way they're drawn. A crowd scene blurs by, but one background wizard has a lovingly inked beard that catches the light. A random cashier in a cosmic convenience store gets an extra reaction shot when reality breaks, eyes widening just a little too slowly, as if the universe remembered they exist. That is not an accident. That is affection. That is someone at the center of time, in a real studio, deciding at 2 a.m. that this one guy matters. Here is the thing. Creators will admit this if you listen to commentaries long enough. You'll hear a director casually mention, "Oh, that mailman, he's my favorite. I keep sneaking him in." Or a writer pointing out a background grandma who appears in 3 different timelines, always just out of focus because they once wrote a full backstory for her in the series Bible and never had the power to use it on screen. Officially, she is nobody. Unofficially, she has a wish, a past, and a tiny emotional arc that lives only in the margins of someone's notebook. Think about that for a second. You are watching an episode for the main plot, but somewhere in the multiverse of drafts and thumbnails, an artist has drawn the same background face 5, 10, 20 times, giving them slightly better poses, slightly cleaner line work, a slightly more precise reaction to the cosmic disaster overhead. The rules of production say, it's just a crowd shot. Their desire says, no, this one is mine. We're going to circle back to this feeling a few more times, because it explains why some barely named characters feel like they have a soul. You can't quite explain it, but you notice when they're in the room. The universe seems to tilt around them for half a second. A pan lingers. A joke lands through their expression instead of the hero's. It's as if the show is unconsciously honoring the invisible wish of the person who loves them. So as you drift towards sleep, imagine a writer in a dim office smiling every time a certain background face appears on the animatic. No spotlight, no arc, just a private favorite walking quietly through the edges of existence. And as we move into the next characters, those with almost no lines at all, keep that in mind. Someone somewhere is secretly rooting for them. When fans notice how obscure side characters become cult icons, and out there, outside that dim office, something else is happening. While a writer is secretly rooting for a background face, the audience is doing the same thing on a much louder, much weirder scale. They are not just watching the universe, they are reaching into it. Let's start with that moment when you pause an episode because some random background student has a ridiculous haircut or an exhausted expression that feels a little too real. No name, no lines. 2 seconds of screen time. And then, online, they suddenly have a name. A major, a tragic X. 3 alternate outfits and a playlist. Here is the thing. Fandom looks at the negative space of a timeline and treats it like a coloring book. They fill in what the narrative left blank as if the center of time had a few pixels missing, and they just patch the universe. You see it with nameless monsters too. The one that gets punched once and yeeted off screen forever. Someone draws them later, sitting in a tiny apartment, bandaged up, feeding a terrarium, trying to process that a hero just altered their entire existence. Think about that for a second. The show gives you a roar and a defeat. The fan art gives you a mortgage, a favorite mug, and a phone wallpaper of their monster spouse. Power shifts. The narrative is no longer the only reality. And creators notice. They pretend they don't, but they do. That background student becomes a running gag in later episodes, always in the same seat, always reacting just a little too dramatically to cosmic chaos. The monster shows up again in a crowd shot, now with a tiny cast on the exact arm the fan art injured. No dialogue, just a quiet acknowledgement that the timeline has been nudged. We're going to call this the feedback loop. The show projects, the fandom responds, and the show, in that specifically Adventure Time way, blushes and writes a tiny love letter back into existence. Sometimes that loop escalates. A character who was once just a reaction shot suddenly gets a single line, then two, then a name in the credits. In many series Bibles, there were already hidden backstories waiting, but it's the noise of desire from the audience that tells the writers where to point the camera. It is not random. It is a soft gravitational pull of attention, bending the narrative like light around a star made of memes and fanfiction. Emotionally, what's happening is almost heroic. Fans are rescuing people from obscurity. They are saying you were background in the script, but you don't have to be background in our multiverse. That is a wish, a real one. The audience plays Prismo, except instead of one wish per person per lifetime, there are infinite tiny wishes. Give them a past, give them a future, let them be more than a punchline. And the show, when it listens, is granting those wishes in miniature, which raises a strange question. If the fandom can pull a character out of the margins just by wanting them hard enough, what happens to the ones who never get noticed at all? Memory as magic, the spell that keeps side characters alive. Here is the thing. A side character doesn't really live in the episode. They live in you. They live in the half-formed, slightly blurry memory that surfaces when you think, oh yeah, that guy, as you're brushing your teeth or collapsing into bed. The show gives them 20 seconds of screen time. Your brain quietly grants the wish for a longer existence. Let's start with a simple idea. Remembering someone, even vaguely, is a kind of magic. Not fireball laser through reality magic, memory magic. The low-budget, extremely human power to say, in your own private universe, you still exist. When you picture that one background wizard in the Candy Kingdom crowd, or that exhausted worker in the regular show park, you are extending their timeline beyond the script. The episode ended, the credits rolled, but in your mind, they kept walking. Think about that for a second. As you fall asleep, your brain does not politely replay the main plot in order. It jumps. It cuts. It lingers on a face in the back row of a school assembly, on a single reaction shot during a cosmic battle, on a throwaway line from a character whose name you never learned. That is not an error. That is your personal multiverse allocating processing power to the margins. In this video, we're going to keep treating that as real power. Because Prismo already showed us the rule. If a consciousness is being dreamed, it exists. He is literally a dream at the center of time, a wish-granting presence who only holds reality together as long as one old man keeps sleeping. The moment the dream stops, the time room, the screens, the pickle jar, the entire cosmic bachelor pad, all of it just blinks out. So when you replay a tiny scene while your body sinks into the mattress, you're doing a small Prismo impression. You're the dreamer now. Those forgotten side characters become like mini Prismos inverted. Not one dreamer sustaining one cosmic being, but one sleepy brain sustaining dozens of minor lives for a few more minutes. They flicker in and out as you drift, and for that span of time, their existence is as valid as any hero's. Here is the pattern interrupt. Tonight, you are not the audience. You are the time room. The center of time is your pillow. The screens are the images sliding across the back of your eyelids. We're going to let the energy slow down here. Like the universe itself is dimming the lights. Let specific faces float up. The penguin in the background of an Ice King scene. The gem who only appears once in a Steven Universe crowd shot. The guy at the Mystery Shack register who never gets a close-up. You don't need their names. You don't need their full lore. By holding them in your awareness for even a breath, you are granting them one more night of being seen. And as you keep listening, As your thoughts start to blur and rearrange, you're quietly writing new timelines for them, little side universes that branch off from a single remembered frame, carrying them forward while you slide gently into sleep. Between canon and headcanon, the gentle power of filling in the gaps is those little side universes you're spinning in your head right now have a name, even if you never say it out loud. Headcanon, not official, not printed in an art book, not confirmed on some wiki. Just the personal private lore you generate to patch the gaps the universe of the show leaves open on purpose. Here is the thing. Canon is what the camera shows you. Headcanon is what you quietly decide must be happening just off screen. Canon is the wish as spoken. Headcanon is the echo of that wish as it ripples out through time, through every forgotten corner of the multiverse in your mind. Think about that for a second. You are not just watching a story, you are co-writing a softer, quieter version of it. Side characters invite this more than anyone. Main characters are crowded with answers. Origin episodes, tragic flashbacks, full arcs that loop and resolve. Side characters live in the negative space between scenes, in the half-second reaction shot, in the clerk who rings up the magic sword and never appears again. They exist at the edge of the frame, and that edge is where your imagination slips in like light under a door. Let's start with something tiny. A background couple in a cafe in Steven universe arguing silently while Garnet walks past. Canon gives you 3 seconds. No dialogue, no names. Your mind supplies the rest. Maybe they met at the beach years ago. Maybe one of them is secretly a crystal gem sympathizer. Maybe this argument is the last tremor before a breakup that never quite happens. You build a whole emotional timeline out of a single unfinished gesture. Or think about the bored convenience store clerk in regular show, scanning cosmic hot dogs while a portal to another dimension opens outside. The show doesn't follow him home. But you can. You can imagine his tiny apartment, his late-night shows, the way he tells himself that all this reality-warping nonsense is just stress. He is not a hero. He is not a villain. He is just a witness to power. We're going to do it again with a monster, the random dungeon beast in Adventure Time, whose only job, canonically, is to roar and be defeated. You can decide it has a nest somewhere near the center of time, that it collects lost wishes like shiny coins, that it is tired of being called a monster in that specifically Adventure Time way. None of this is official. All of it is true for you. And that is where the gentle power comes in. Headcanons can be sharp, but they can also be soft. You can give the nameless wizard a friend. You can imagine the background princess finally getting one quiet day without disaster. You can grant closure where the episode cut to credits. It is a low-stakes private magic trick, bending reality toward kindness. As you relax, you don't have to hold on to any of it. Let your headcanons form, shimmer, and dissolve like Prismo's projections on the wall. You are under no obligation to be right. There is no quiz at the end, no cosmic judge of accuracy, no secret list of correct answers pinned up somewhere in the writer's room of existence. What if we treat every stray character who wanders through your thoughts tonight as an invitation rather than a puzzle? You can let their stories open, but you never have to close them. And as you drift further down, we'll follow one of those half-imagined timelines a little farther and see where it quietly leads. Echoes of the main cast, side characters as emotional mirrors, so we follow that half-imagined timeline, and almost immediately we bump into someone who is not the hero, not the destined one, just the person standing 3 feet to the left when destiny walks through the door. Here is the thing. Writers love mirrors. Not the shiny, on-the-nose kind, but the quiet reflections that live in the background, where you barely notice them on your first pass through the universe. A nervous civilian watching the hero cast a spell and flinch. A minor worker at some cosmic bureaucracy terminal. Exhausted, punching the same glowing keys while reality reboots around them. A lonely monster at the edge of the frame, pausing just a second too long. When it sees two friends hug, they're not the center of time. They're the echo of someone else's wish. Let's start with that nervous civilian. The main character is wrestling with whether to trust magic at all, whether power can ever be used without corrupting everything it touches. Meanwhile, in the corner of one episode, there's a background character who literally has the same conflict compressed into 30 seconds. They reach out toward a spell, pull back, reach again, then finally let it wash over them. No speech, no lore drop, just a tiny parallel timeline, a miniature of the same fear and the same desire. Think about that for a second. When you notice it, the theme stops belonging to one person. It spills out into the crowd. Suddenly, it isn't just the hero has trust issues with power, it's this entire culture is learning how to live with power at all. The story goes from personal anxiety to collective adaptation. And the only thing that changed is that the camera let an extra hold their breath on screen. The tired worker does the same work for different questions. The protagonist wonders if their quest is meaningless. The worker wonders if their job is. Different scale, same ache. You see it in a janitor sweeping up after a battle, glaring at the crater in the floor like it insulted their entire existence. You see it in a clerk processing multiverse travel forms, while heroes shout about saving reality. They are not evil, they are not even indifferent, they are just bound by rules older than they are. And then there's the lonely monster, the one who wants connection in exactly the way the hero does, but with claws. One awkward pause, one hesitant wave before an attack, and you realize this creature is the hero's shadow timeline, the version of their desire that never found language. On first viewing, you miss all of this. Of course you do. The plot is loud, the echoes are quiet. But on a rewatch, when you're already drifting and the main events feel familiar, those reflections start to surface like patterns in wallpaper. You're not hunting Easter eggs. You're just letting your eyes relax until the hidden image appears. In this video, we're going to keep doing that. We're going to keep soft focusing the frame until the universe of side characters sharpens into view. Because once you've seen the mirrors, the next question is obvious. What about the characters who don't reflect the hero at all, but bend the entire timeline around them without anyone noticing? The ones who stay behind, abandoned settings, and their last residence. So let's follow that bend in the timeline to the people who don't go anywhere at all. The heroes get a portal, a bus ticket, a last swelling music cue. Somebody else gets the broom, the paperwork, and the closing shift. Here is the thing. Every triumphant exit is also an abandoned setting, and abandoned settings always have tenants. Let's start with the trope itself, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. The party saves the town, defeats the cosmic horror, repairs reality, and then they leave. They walk off into a new episode, a new season, a new universe. And the camera, very politely, follows them. But in that cut, in that tiny jump through time, there's an entire unwatched show about the people who stay behind and have to live with the consequences of someone else's adventure. Think about Beach City without the gems for a second. Stephen is off-world, negotiating with diamonds and rewriting the rules of an empire. Back home, the fragments still open the stand. Kiki still has to get up for work. Nanafur is probably drafting 12 new municipal safety policies about no more giant space hands in the bay. The cosmic scale of the gem war collapses back down into rent, school, and repairing the boardwalk for the 5th time. Gravity Falls does it too. The Pines family drives away. The show gives you this perfect farewell, and it feels complete. But Seuss inherits the Mystery Shack. Wendy goes back to shifts and late-night rooftop hangs. Lazy Susan still spins that diner sign. There is no final credit sequence for the first quiet Tuesday in September, when a tourist asks about the journals and Seuss just decides not to tell them. That's a wish in reverse, a choice to keep reality small after you've seen the multiverse. Regular Show's Park is another one. Mordecai and Rigby get their arcs, their promotions, their literal launch into space and beyond. The park itself keeps existing. Someone has to mow the grass that used to conceal portals, log the maintenance hours on playgrounds that have seen the end of existence. The universe doesn't reset to factory settings just because the protagonists have leveled up. We're going to slow down here, because this is where the emotional weight lives. Being left behind is framed as stability, as a happy ending, but it also carries this strange low-frequency grief. You watch someone else step through a door you will never use. Your life remains, but the version of reality where you got on that bus with them collapses into a timeline that only exists in your head. And this is not just cartoon logic. Friends move away. Shows end. A job you hated continues without you. Fluorescent lights buzzing over someone else's late shift. There is a cosmic weirdness to realizing that the coffee shop you loved is still making drinks in a universe where you are no longer a regular. Your presence was temporary. Their existence goes on. Pattern interrupt. What if you are the side character in someone else's coming-of-age episode? What if you were the clerk, the neighbor, the classmate who got one heartfelt conversation and then never appeared again on the main channel of their memory? The camera doesn't follow you, but your night continues. You lock the door of the mystery shack, or the beach city shop, or the park's empty office. One by one, familiar lights go out. Neon sign, hallway, back room. The universe shrinks to the sound of your keys, the echo of your footsteps, and the quiet, ordinary power of being the last person to leave. Soft multiverse theory. Every background face is a branching timeline. And here is the thing the camera never tells you. Even as those last hallway lights click off, the story doesn't actually stop when the hero leaves the frame. It just forks quietly. Like a river you only notice once the main current has already swept past you. Let's start with a soft multiverse theory. Not the terrifying chart-on-the-wall red string everywhere multiverse. A gentle one. A bedtime multiverse. In this version of reality, every time a side character reacts to an event, a flinch when the monster roars, a raised eyebrow when the gem ship lands, a shrug when the Lich's wish ripples through the universe, there is a version of the timeline where we followed them instead of the hero. The camera turns 2 inches left, and an entirely different existence unspools. Think about that for a second. In Gravity Falls, while Dipper and Mabel chase the headline mysteries, there's a universe where a random local, the guy sweeping up outside the diner, the girl who always seems to be buying duct tape and salt, starts their own investigation board. No journal, no destiny, just a growing pile of Polaroids and receipts. And what was that in the woods? Scribbled in the margins. In that specifically Adventure Time way, reality bends for them too. They just don't have theme music. Over in Beach City, every gem attack leaves someone in the background holding a phone, or a skateboard, or a half-finished smoothie. In one branch of the multiverse, that kid goes home, writes one song about it as a joke, and then another, and then accidentally forms a band that only plays shows about alien catastrophes and shield-shaped miracles. The main timeline barely notices, but somewhere else, that band is the emotional center of the universe, and the crystal gems are just the weird celebrities who keep photobombing the album covers. We're going to gently scale that up to the cosmic level. Imagine Prismo-like entities, not just one at the center of time, but a whole quiet bureaucracy of cosmic archivists, half lounging, half working, watching all these possible shows at once. Infinite screens, each tuned not to the chosen hero, but to the extra 3 rows back. They flip through pilots that were never made, seasons that only exist because one background face decided to care a little more, or a little less. It's not about power in the explosive sense. It's about attention as a wish, focus as a tiny rewrite of the universe, and there is comfort in that. No character is truly stuck as an extra. Not the bored cashier in regular show, not the nervous wizard in the back of the Magic Man crowd. Somewhere, in some adjacent timeline, they are the protagonist, and everyone else is color in their margins. The rules of narrative didn't change. The camera just picked a different center. So as you drift, imagine a slow montage of alternate openings. Title cards you'll never see. Theme songs for characters whose names you barely remember. You're in a cosmic living room, remote in hand, lazily flipping channels across the multiverse, pausing for a moment on each forgotten face before sleep changes the channel for you. Sleep as a time room, where you and the side characters meet, and then, at some point, the remote slips from your hand. The channels keep changing, but you stop being the one pressing the buttons. Your bed becomes very still, very quiet, and in that quiet it does something strange. It turns into a tiny time room. Not a perfect replica, obviously. No glowing prismo stretched across the wall, no official center of time plaque. Just blankets, the low hum of reality outside your window, and you floating in a personal pocket universe where linear time loosens its grip. Here is the thing. Your bed is small, but the timelines it holds are not. Scenes from Adventure Time drift in next to beach city sunsets. Gravity Falls fog rolls in around the edges, and a regular show Night Shift hums in the background like a refrigerator left open between dimensions. Let's start with what happens as you drift. Your thoughts get less verbal, more cinematic. You stop narrating and start projecting. In that moment, your mind becomes a wish granter. Not with Prismo's formal rules, not with one wish per person and a cosmic boss auditing your paperwork, but with something softer. You wish, without words, for company, for familiarity, for one more conversation you never actually saw on screen. And your brain, obedient and weird, summons the side characters. We're going to let them do what they never had time to do on television. A beach city civilian, the one who was always just closing their shop in the background, finds themselves sitting on the edge of the Gravity Falls water tower, legs dangling into an Oregon night that technically shouldn't exist in the same universe. Next to them, a Gravity Falls local stares at the sky, trying to explain why the stars here feel wrong, like someone shuffled constellations between timelines. They trade small talk about weird summers and weirder invasions. It's nothing dramatic. It's just two background lives, finally comparing notes. Down the hallway of your subconscious, a regular show convenience store clerk punches out for their break and opens the wrong door. Instead of a parking lot, there is the time room, or at least your bootleg dream version of it. Beanbag chairs, an impossible number of screens, a jar that is probably pickles, but might be something with more power than it admits. They shrug, sit down, and watch themselves ringing up snacks on one of the monitors, mildly annoyed that even in a cosmic hangout they are still on shift. Dream logic does not care about billing order. In sleep, the main characters fade into the crowd, and the crowd steps forward, like they've been waiting in the wings for seasons. That one crystal gem background fusion gets a full monologue. The random Candy Kingdom citizen who once screamed and ran now calmly explains municipal safety protocols to a terrified wizard. Think about that for a second. In dreams, the narrative hierarchy collapses. The universe flattens. Everyone gets top billing for at least one scene. You don't have to direct any of this. In fact, the more you try to control it, the more it slips away. So the invitation tonight is to do what Prismo cannot do in his own time room. Let go of the rules. Let whatever character wants to show up wander in. Give them a little extra screen time. Let the wish be vague and generous. I want to see who I forgot. Somewhere, a door in your dream hallway is starting to open, very slowly, and the person on the other side is not who you think it is. The quietest stakes, why these tiny stories matter more than we think. The door is opening, and whoever steps through is not the hero, not the villain, not the prophecy child. It's the mailman who delivered the cursed letter. the background grandma who saw the portal flicker open behind the convenience store, the guy sweeping up after the cosmic battle at the center of time. The universe never rolled credits for them, but they kept existing anyway. Here is the thing: paying attention to them is not useless trivia, it's practice. When you let your mind linger on the one-off wizard in Adventure Time, who warns Finn once and then disappears, or the anxious donut clerk in Steven Universe watching a gem war from behind the counter, you are quietly training your attention to move toward the edges of the frame. And in real life, that same attention is what lets you notice the barista who looks exhausted or the co-worker who went quiet after the meeting. Attention is a form of kindness. It's a tiny, low-budget wish you can grant without any cosmic power at all. Let's start with why side characters feel so strangely familiar. They live in the realm of being overlooked, underappreciated, taken for granted. They are the kid in the background classroom shot in Gravity Falls, the park employee in Regular Show who never gets a title card, the citizen of Ooo who only appears as a reaction shot when reality bends. Most of us have lived there, not center stage, not the chosen one, just in the crowd when the meteor hits. Think about that for a second. The emotional realism of being background radiation in someone else's storyline is way higher than being the destined hero of the multiverse. We're going to connect this back to the core messages of these shows, because they quietly insist that everyone has a story worth hearing. Adventure Time keeps circling found family and responsibility. Steven Universe builds entire arcs out of empathy for people who were once framed as obstacles. Even the cosmic bureaucracy around Prismo's wish rules implies a hidden network of clerks, bosses, and unseen entities making sure every timeline gets processed. The camera doesn't follow them, but the narrative depends on them. Now, imagine that giving these characters 5 seconds of your half-asleep brain is like granting them a wish. Not a lich-level extinction wish, just a small domestic wish. I want to be seen once. You remember the name of a throwaway guard. You picture the old man whose dream is Prismo, sleeping alone in some forgotten room of reality. You let the donut clerk finish their shift in your imagination. For them, in that specifically Adventure Time way, that is enough to anchor their existence. And here is the quiet paradox. When you do this, it doesn't only complete them, it completes the world around them. A universe where only the main cast matters feels flat, like a timeline rendered at low resolution. But when your attention spills into the corners, the multiverse thickens. The shows feel deeper. The time room feels less like an empty set and more like a crossroads of actual lives. Somewhere, on some screen Prismo forgot to mute, another unnamed face flickers into focus, waiting. In the next section, we'll follow them a little farther and see what happens when the background finally steps into the light. From cosmic to intimate, tracing the thread through every type of side character, so that unnamed face on the muted screen becomes our doorway. From there, we can pan all the way out, past the time room, past the center of time itself, and look at the entire spectrum of side characters stretched across the multiverse like a gradient. On one end, you've got Prismo-like wish granters, time police multiversal clerks, guardians of reality who file paperwork on collapsing timelines. On the other end, you've got the guy sweeping the floor, while the universe almost ends. Let's start at the top of that ladder. The cosmic ones look enormous. Prismo in his lounge, the time babies, the diamonds, the eldritch librarians of Gravity Falls' weirder corners. They embody rules. They talk in terms of universes, not afternoons. But here is the thing. The more power they have, the more you see the handcuffs. Prismo can rewrite existence, but not his own loneliness. Time cops can reset history, but not their boredom. The cosmic clerks can deny your cross-reality travel form, but they still have to clock out and microwave leftovers. Slide down a level and you hit the guardians, the temple sentries, the bubble shield gems, the park groundskeepers, accidentally standing between our dimension and annihilation. They have just enough power to matter, and just enough vulnerability to break. Think about that for a second. Their whole existence is one long tension between duty and desire. They are told, explicitly or implicitly, your job is to hold the door. But they also want to watch movies, fall in love, take a nap that isn't on shift. Then you drift into the civilians, beach city background kids, random candy citizens, nameless park attendees. On paper, they are the least important. In reality, they are the reason any of this hurts. When a wish twists reality, it lands on them first. When time is rewritten, it is their Tuesday that disappears. A quiet reaction shot of a scared extra does more to sell the weight of a cosmic event than a dozen speeches about destiny. And finally, the joke characters with depth. The guy whose whole bit is one catchphrase. The mascot who exists to be punched. The weird uncle who appears in exactly 3 scenes. In that specifically Adventure Time way, the shows let them slip, just once, and reveal a tragic past, or a tiny dream, or a single moment of unexpected wisdom. Suddenly the punchline has a timeline. Suddenly the gag has gravity. Across all of them, the same tensions echo. Power versus vulnerability, visibility versus invisibility, duty versus desire. We're going to see that every show uses this spectrum to make the world feel layered and alive, not just a spotlight pointed at the main cast. Side characters become thematic amplifiers. They take the core message and bounce it around the room until even the quiet corners are humming with it. In this video, that's our thread. We've walked from cosmic lounges to crowded sidewalks, from wish granters to background baristas, and now we're going to start circling back, gently, to that cosmic lounge of forgotten faces, where every extra is still on some screen, waiting to be noticed one more time before you fall asleep. Back in the cosmic lounge, Prismo-style reflection on forgotten friends, so we circle back, like the camera drifting through space, and the time room fades in again. Same couch, same impossible windows, same quiet hum at the center of time. But the screens are different now. They're not just showing heroes and universe-ending bosses, they're quietly looping the side characters we've been pulling out of the background all night. On one monitor, the beach city civilian is frozen in that half-worried, half-bored expression, sweeping sand off the boardwalk while a gem battle rages, 3 streets away. On another, a Gravity Falls local closes up the shop, flips the sign to closed, and pauses for a second longer than the episode ever let you see. Think about that for a second. In the original timeline, you barely noticed them. Here, the Cosmic Lounge plays their lives on repeat, like a playlist of almost forgotten tabs you never closed. Here is the thing. In this video, we're going to treat that as important. Not in a grand save the multiverse way. In a small, almost embarrassingly human way. The multiversal Clark we talked about earlier, shuffling reality forms in some fluorescent interdimensional DMV, has their own screen too, stacked between apocalypses. They stamp a form. They sigh. They check a rule in a manual no one else has read. Their whole existence is a footnote to someone else's wish. And yet, right here, it feels like the universe quietly depends on them showing up to work on time. Over in the corner, a lonely guardian stands at a forgotten gate. Endless night pressing in on every side. No climactic battle. No swelling score. Just the slow, repetitive motion of someone who promised to watch, and keeps watching, even when no one remembers what they're guarding anymore. The screen replays that same moment of hesitation, that tiny flicker of desire to walk away, then the decision not to. Small, so small. But the Cosmic Lounge holds it like it matters. And Prismo, our Prismo-like narrator at least, leans back into the couch, orange outline soft against the glow. He's not granting a wish, he's not bending reality, he is just satisfied. For one night, in one quiet slice of time, These background lives have been spoken out loud again. Named, noticed. There is relief there, contentment. The oddly specific joy of a cosmic being who has watched infinite timelines and still believes that remembering one beach city civilian counts as a kind of power. We're going to slow down with him, because compared to liches and corrupted gems and collapsing multiverses, these arcs are microscopic. They don't stop the universe from ending, they barely nudge a single timeline. But that smallness is strangely comforting, isn't it? It means existence isn't only about the moments when reality breaks, it's also about the person sweeping the floor while it doesn't. So as you lie there, eyes heavier, you can imagine this lounge as a shared waiting room. You, the beach city civilian, the Gravity Falls local, the multiversal clerk, the lonely guardian, all of you framed on different screens, all of you quietly coexisting at the center of time. They don't demand anything. They're just here, keeping watch while you drift, background characters as cosmic nightlights. And just when the room feels fully mapped, every screen neatly catalogued, one more monitor in the far back flickers on, showing a face you definitely don't recognize yet. You as the dreamer, holding entire worlds in half-closed eyes. And for a second, that unknown face on the furthest monitor looks back at you, like it's surprised you finally noticed. Here is the thing. From this point on, you are not just watching the screens. You are the screens. You are the old dreamer. Not in the sense of grey hair and creaky knees, but in the sense of being ancient with stories, heavy with timelines, carrying entire fictional universes in the folds of your memory. You have seen so many quests, so many finales, so many quiet background gags, that your inner universe is basically a multiverse annex. Let's start with something simple. Every time you remember a scene, you wake it up. When you picture Prismo in his time room, or that one crystal gem who only got 2 lines, or the guy sweeping the floor in the Gravity Falls gift shop, you are briefly reanimating all of them, not just the hero delivering the speech, the person in the back row, the bored cashier, the cosmic bureaucrat stamping forms at the center of time. For a few seconds, your attention is the wish that grants them existence again. Think about that for a second. You are lying there, half asleep, phone somewhere on the pillow, this video murmuring about wish rules and side characters, and in the dark theater behind your eyes, entire casts are filing back on stage because you glanced at them in your mind. They don't know they were forgotten. They only know that in this moment, they are real enough to stand under the light of your awareness. And now, as your body gets heavier, as your breathing slows, we're going to let that process keep happening with less effort. The narration keeps going. The lore keeps threading itself together. You don't have to hold on to every detail. You don't have to catalog every cameo. You can let the words wash over you like background dialogue in Prismo's living room, some cosmic late-night movie that just happens to be about your own memory. It's okay if you don't remember any of this in the morning. It's okay if the exact rules of some wish, or the precise backstory of some one-off character, just dissolve. Memory is not a test you pass. It is a tide that comes in and then goes out, and what matters is that for a brief fragment of time, you cared enough to look. That quiet act of attention is already a kind of power. Here is the pattern interrupt. You might feel like you are the passive one here, drifting off while the video does the work. But in that specifically Adventure Time way, the roles are inverted. The video is the dream. You are the dreamer. Without you, these explanations, these timelines, these little background lives are just unobserved waves in a probability ocean. So let your shoulders sink, let your jaw loosen, let your eyes grow heavy. As you slide towards sleep, you're not losing the characters, you're escorting them inward, letting them migrate from screen light into dream light, where they can keep existing off the clock, unbothered by canon or continuity. Somewhere, deep in that inner multiverse, the forgotten faces on the far monitors are settling in. waiting for the next time you remember them again. Soft recap. The tapes we've rewound tonight. So now, while that inner multiverse hums quietly, let's start pulling the night's tapes back off the floor and sliding them into place, one by one. No rush, just a soft inventory of everything we've rewound together. Here is the thing. Even in a universe full of main character destiny, it was the side characters who kept slipping in through the cracks of reality. We met the cosmic bureaucrats first, those Prismo-adjacent clerks and administrators of the multiverse, standing at the center of time with clipboards and glowing terminals, quietly enforcing rules older than the hero's entire timeline. Not dramatic, not flashy. Just the power of a stamped form, a checked box, a wish filed in triplicate, and then forgotten by everyone except the person who has to process it. Then we drifted down from the cosmic rafters into the background civilians. The beach city teen sweeping glass off the boardwalk after a battle, headphones half broken, sky still bruised from the last energy blast. The Gravity Falls local staring up at a sky full of screaming triangles during Weirdmageddon, holding a grocery bag that absolutely does not prepare them for the end of existence. They don't get speeches. They get reaction shots. But those quiet shots tell you how the universe actually feels to live in. We're going to file the Guardians next, the ones stationed at thresholds the main cast sprints through. Temple sentries, pocket dimension bouncers, the tired park groundskeeper who has clearly seen the multiverse fold in on itself 3 times this week and still has to fill out a damage report. They look like jokes until you realize the rules of reality are written into their job descriptions. Think about that for a second. Your whole existence reduced to stand here and stop time from breaking. Then there were the joke characters, the walking punchlines who, on rewatch, reveal strange little seams of longing and desire. The guy who only exists to yell one catchphrase. The mascot who should be a throwaway gag, but keeps reappearing at the edges of catastrophic events, as if the universe keeps accidentally inviting them back. In that specifically Adventure Time way, the line between comedy and quiet tragedy stays very thin. And finally, the fan-adopted favorites, the ones the show barely names but the audience turns into full biographies and timelines, a face in a crowd shot, a clerk stamping forms in a glowing corridor, a nameless beach city teen, a Gravity Falls local frozen mid-scream as reality pixelates, whole inner lives implied in 3 seconds of screen time. Across all of them, the pattern stayed the same. Implied lives between episodes, rule systems hidden inside scenes, emotional mirrors held up to the main cast, reflecting fear, awe, exhaustion, and tiny stubborn hope. They don't carry the plot, but they carry the world. Every minor shoulder holds one small corner of the story's weight. So as we label these mental tapes and slide them back onto the shelf, the universe gets quieter, the cosmic bureaucrats log off, the background civilians go home, the Guardians lean on their spears and close their eyes for a moment. The jokes wind down into silence, the fan favorites fade back into the crowd. And somewhere just past waking, another tape is waiting, already humming, ready to be rewound next. The gentle goodbye, framing side characters as tragic and relatable. And that next tape, the one humming just past waking, is the one with your name half scribbled on the label. Because here is the thing. A lot of us move through existence feeling like we're in the wide shot. Not the close-up, not the dramatic zoom. We're the person on the bus behind the protagonist, the co-worker at the third desk from the left. Important enough to be there, but not important enough to be noticed. Think about that for a second. How many days have passed where you felt like an extra in your own timeline? Let's start by admitting that the shows we love are honest about that feeling. The background kids in Beach City, the random citizens of Ooo, the park employees in regular show who never get the big boss battle. They are constantly overshadowed, constantly cut away from. And yet the universe still bends around them. The animators still draw their faces. The writers still track their tiny arcs in series Bibles that no one outside the studio ever sees. The camera may not linger, but reality quietly does. In that specifically Adventure Time way, the multiverse needs its side characters. Prismo's cosmic wish bureaucracy only makes sense because there are countless unnamed wishes burning their one wish on something small, something local, something we never see on screen. Someone wished their crops would grow. Someone wished their kid would get better. Someone wished the monster would just go away this once. No theme song, no prophecy, just a single sentence that nudges a life back from the edge. We're going to call that what it is. Quietly heroic. Not the sword-swinging, save-the-universe power fantasy, but the power of keeping the lights on. The cafe worker who serves coffee to the chosen one before the final battle. The mail carrier who still does the route while reality is cracking open overhead. The crystal gem background characters sweeping up after a fusion fight. They hold jobs. They survive weirdness. They maintain normalcy inside impossible circumstances. Like gravity falls sideways for a second, and they still show up to work on time. And you, listening to this in the dark, are doing a version of that. You keep appointments, you answer messages, you remember birthdays no one else tracks. You stabilize the emotional weather of your tiny corner of the universe with texts, with favors, with quiet presence. No narrator explains it. No soundtrack swells, but entire emotional timelines would collapse without you there, absorbing impact, redirecting chaos, making sure tomorrow can even happen. There is meaning in that. Deep, structural meaning. You are the reason certain arguments de-escalate. You are the reason someone at work doesn't quit this week. You are the reason a friend feels, for one more day, like existence is survivable. You are not the side character in that story. You are the invisible load-bearing wall. So as the room grows still, let this be the gentle goodbye for tonight's cast of forgotten faces. And for you, you are allowed to be small on the cosmic scale and still be indispensable in your own radius. You are allowed to rest. The background can close its eyes, because the universe is not done with its extras yet. There is one more forgotten character waiting in the wings, and their story bends reality in a way that... Outro in a whisper. Keeping the lore playing while you drift bends reality in a way that you don't actually have to stay awake to hear. Let's start right there. You have officially done enough lore for one night. You have listened to cosmic wish rules and background destinies and the quiet power of people the camera barely remembers. And here is the thing. You are allowed to let the rest of the universe play without you for a while. If, somehow, you are still awake in this particular timeline, hovering in that soft half-dream place, and this kind of deep, sleepy lore actually makes your brain feel quieter instead of louder, you can gently tap a like button. No rush, no pressure, just a tiny signal, almost as small as a background extra in the corner of a frame, that tells the algorithmic multiverse, hey, this helped, so it can float toward other people who need a calm voice talking about forgotten characters at the center of time. And if you want this to be a ritual, we're going to make that ridiculously easy. You can subscribe, not as a bold, life-changing decision, but as a small nighttime habit, like turning off the big light or checking that the door is locked. One click, and more episodes about Prismo-style cosmic bureaucracy, more soft dives into the janitors of reality and the baristas of the universe, just appear in your feed, waiting to spin up whenever you're ready to drift again. Think about that for a second. A whole quiet playlist of side characters, waiting like patient NPCs in a save file, holding your place in the story while you sleep. If talking feels like too much right now, you absolutely do not have to move. You can just listen. But if not now, then tomorrow, when you wake back up in this branch of existence, you're invited to leave a comment with the most obscure side character you remember. The one you saw once in Steven Universe, or in the background of Gravity Falls, Or in that one regular show episode where reality broke a little and nobody mentioned it again. Drop their name or describe them, and you quietly steer where we go next, which forgotten life we unfold into a whole bedtime universe. You can also add this to a fall asleep lore playlist. Give it a name only you understand. Background radiation, or cozy multiverse, or Prismo would approve. Then you can let it autoplay through other soft, dense deep dives while you rest, so the lore keeps walking forward even as your awareness powers down for the night. And if you do none of that, that is completely fine. Your only real quest here is rest. No side objectives, no secret endings locked behind engagement. The rules of this tiny corner of the multiverse are simple. You are allowed to just exist. You are allowed to just listen. You are allowed to fall asleep before the next forgotten character ever says their first line. Lights down in the time room. Final fade to black. And somewhere, as you are allowed to just exist, the time room listens to its own breathing. Screens that were once a blinding constellation of timelines have already started to dim. One by one, tiny universes tuck themselves in. A forgotten candy citizen in the background of an early episode finishes wiping down a counter. A random beach city extra closes their laptop. A Gravity Falls tourist, who once screamed at a monster off-screen, pulls the motel curtains shut. None of this is dramatic. None of it is a boss fight. It is simply the multiverse, powering down for the night. Here is the thing. Side characters sleep too. Not literally most of the time, but in that specifically Adventure Time way, where reality has a lights-out mode and everyone just soft resets to idle. The cosmic lounge at the center of time feels it first. The hum of the screens drops. The colors lean toward warm, like the last glow of a CRT after you hit the off switch and walk away. Prismo, or this Prismo-like narrator we've been hanging out with, inches forward on the couch. He doesn't snap his fingers. He doesn't fire off one last wish. He just sets the remote down, very carefully, as if the plastic has gravity. He stretches, joints creaking in a way that doesn't make sense for a two-dimensional being. And the time room responds, lights fading to a gentle halo that barely sketches his outline against the glass of existence. Think about that for a second. A being who can rewrite a timeline with a sentence, whose job is literally to bend reality, chooses to end the night by doing nothing. No final montage, no secret post-credit lore drop, just a long exhale at the center of time. We're going to leave the side characters where they belong, in the background, but not abandoned. The Steven Universe Bordy with 3 lines. The regular show park guest who saw the universe rewind and then went back to eating nachos. The old man dreaming Prismo into existence in some quiet, unseen hospital room. They are all still there. They will still be there tomorrow. Their desires are paused, not erased. In this video, we traced their hidden arcs and the quiet power they hold. But you do not have to carry any of those details with you. You do not need to remember which episode a background cameo confirmed a secret relationship, or which wish quietly rewrote a universe off-screen. Let all of that blur. Let the lore smear at the edges like wet paint, until it is only texture, only mood. If a stray thought tries to catalog every rule, every wish, every timeline, you have permission to let it trail off mid-sentence. The characters are patient, the multiverse is patient, none of them need you to stay awake to keep existing. So the time room settles, the screens dim to black, the remote stays where it is. No stinger, no last-second twist, just a slow, quiet fade. Good night.